Or some
I might get one of those.
from,
Okay. All right, we're going to get started, everyone. About 10 seconds. Okay, welcome everyone to the City of Steamboat Springs City Council regular meeting number 2026-05, Tuesday, February 10th, 2026 at 5 p.m. Heather, would you do the honors of roll call?
Steve Muntean,
Yeah.
Gail Gary,
Here.
John Agosta,
Here.
Dave Barnes,
Here.
Michael Bacino,
Here.
Amy Dixon, here, Brian Swintek.
Here. Okay, shall we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? There's a flag up at the back of the room and one up front here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, tonight is a work session, and the work session procedure is that council will give direction to staff at work sessions for the presentation of action items at future regular council meetings. No motions will be considered. Public comment will be taken at each of the two work session topics. And with that, we are going to just roll into our first work session topic, which is city council goals. And Tom, do you want to set things up?
I do. Thank you, President Muntean. Tom Leeson, City Manager. Tonight we're hoping to kind of refine and sort of reestablish, if you will, the City Council 26-27 goals that you worked on during your retreat. Council did great work during the retreat, and the goal really is to sort of build upon that work. As just a reminder, the city is currently in the process of updating our 2026 strategic plan, and the goals that you establish here tonight will be incorporated into that strategic plan. And the strategic plan, which is a 2 to 3 year sort of operational plan, is guided by sort of a 3 to 5 year policy horizon. And that has been primarily established by the Steamboat Springs Community Plan, which we did include as a link into your packet tonight. So hopefully you got a chance to look at that, because that's got a lot of goals and initiatives that were established sort of by adopted by City Council, but also through a very, very public process. So the communication forum tonight is organized by the goal topics, so the sort of the big headings of diverse housing options, transportation mobility, fiscal sustainability and financial stewardship, environmental sustainability and community engagement and policy, and then in public outreach. We spent some time, staff spent some time putting into those categories what we're calling current initiatives. So those are initiatives that the staff has either started or has not started, but is budgeted and will start this year, to give you an idea of kind of what's already underway from an action standpoint that align to your goals, as well as what we're calling new initiatives. And these were some ideas that staff came up with that we certainly could undertake that'll also to align your goals, with an understanding that we probably can't do it all, but we wanted to give you some ideas about things that we could undertake if that is your priority. So really the goal is for you to review these goal statements, clarify them if you need to, and give us direction in terms of what your priorities are, and if there's any changes that you need. And we have staff here to answer any questions, address any questions you have about any of the initiatives, either current or new initiatives. So with that, I'll really just turn it over to you and have you have a discussion about which direction you want to head. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, Tom. And I just wanted to make a reminder here, this is a work session, so it's more informal. We don't want anybody to dominate the discussion, obviously, and we want everybody to participate. And I thought I'd also try to head things in a certain direction to start with here, just so that we don't get bogged down. And if we do get bogged down, I will bring that up, and I hope the rest of you do too. But if you look at page 1-3 here, which it has the diverse housing options at the top as the first one. I want to make sure that we understand what our role is, and we are focused on the outcomes and the objectives, meaning what are we going to do? That is our focus. Operations, which is more the city and the staff, is how are we going to implement? So we want to make sure that we try to keep ourselves at the what are we going to do level and not get into the implementation side of things. So what I was going to suggest we do in terms of diverse housing options is you can see there on that page that there's 3 bold bullets there. And I wanted to draw your attention to just the second one, which is to deploy SDR funds and adopt policies expeditiously in accordance with Housing Opportunity Strategic Plan. So if we say, what are we going to do? We are going to deploy SDR funds, right? And if you look down that list of current initiatives, we have discussed those already. Some of those are in progress and they're into the implementation phase or how they're going to be implemented. So I thought that second bullet was a bullet that wasn't very controversial or didn't need too much dialogue. So I just wanted to check with everyone, if we could just start there. Do we feel okay with the current initiatives around deed restriction, short-term rental solicitation program, inclusionary zoning, and then the state funding opportunities at the bottom there, the last one? Or do we need to have a discussion about this part? No?
Is this a point where we would want to have Neil from NHP or come up or schedule a presentation to council on those affordable housing options that might be at our disposal, or?
Well, that would be the how, not the what.
Okay.
So, but if we stick at the what right now, and we have people in the room here who are working on the how, but that could be part of that moving forward. Yeah.
I think this one's a little bit different, but one of the things as I was thinking through this, right, is how do we measure success?
Right, the
Right?
metric.
In terms of what is the outcome, right, that we want to see. And this one to some extent is self-explanatory, right? I don't know to the extent that we talk about, right, we're going to have a deed restriction program, right? This, but do we want to put any, I don't want to say guardrails, but to the extent that what's the outcome that we're trying to achieve? Well, that one's pretty clear. We adopt the policy, develop and launch a short-term rental tax fund. We're going to adopt inclusionary zoning. We're going to adopt these plans, but is there some sort of, is just getting them done in 2 years how we measure success?
Well, I think we have more than that in this. I would say that, for example, when Brad talks about deed restriction pilot program, he's going to measure success based on how well that program does at allocating those $3 million across those 2 different 150 and 250,000. So I think there is some measurement in there.
So that's exactly right. In terms of when I looked at this one, I'm like, okay, is the outcome that we are going to secure is somewhere between 12 and 20 deed restricted homes? Right? When I just did the math, right? If we did 150,000, you'd get 20. If you did 250, you'd get 12.
Are you asking for KPIs?
So just again, how do we, yes, what is the outcome that we want, right?
I just would be curious if Tom has any opinion on that.
Yeah. Council has talked about the need to have SMART goals, and I understand that. I also, as part of the strategic plan, we will have specific metrics to evaluate the success or lack thereof of various initiatives, and that'll be part of that process. The intent is to have that on a public dashboard. So I think it's probably, I would say probably better to have council stay at a little bit of a higher level in terms of the how, in terms of saying that you want to achieve sort of a higher level goal, and then we can sort of figure out what an appropriate metric is to measure the success of that particular goal.
And will you bring that back to council?
The metrics?
Yeah.
Yep,
Yes.
that'll be part of the strategic plan process.
And you're going to bring that back to us anyway, because you're going to give us quarterly or whatever updates.
Yes.
And I guess that's just thinking about it from a timing perspective, right? And getting a sense of how long, right, we're February right now. And so kind of, what the timing of it is and so sorry, I've taken us back up to the higher level from the perspective of what the timing of this is and what's the timing kind of the strategic plan and how quickly are you going to populate all of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think timing is a perfectly reasonable metric, if you will, for you to include in this. If you want to achieve some of this by a certain date, but in terms of specific performance metrics or KPIs, our intent is to have the strategic plan adopted in late May, early June, and then very quickly thereafter be able to roll out the public dashboard, probably another couple months after that. So the metrics themselves won't be on the dashboard until after, but developing the metrics will be part of the strategic planning process. If that makes sense.
Yeah, so probably,
So if I might, interject here, in this area, we have 4 bulleted items. The first 3, I look at those and say, okay, what we're ultimately trying to do is increase the stock of worker housing or affordable housing. The 4th one seems to be misplaced. It seems like it's almost a bullet by itself because it's more of of a strategy of making sure that we get funds, and the other 3 are really about increasing stock. So to be clear, I think we should pull that one out as a separate thing. But the first 3, I believe that, is there any number that we can come with, and I don't know I could look for our goal for what how many units do we want to increase the stock by with that particular?
those 3 bullets.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's pulling a number out of the sky, quite frankly, if we try to do something like that.
Well-
I mean, the first one, we know it's 12 to 20. The second one,
But we know
That's-
what's in the pipeline, right?
well, but that's going to depend too on the size of the STR allocation too, in terms of how many units we get out of something like that. If we spend 5 million versus 15 million on a project, you're going to get more, hopefully at the 15. But if you want to put something in there,
One recommendation we do is if you want specific metrics, because this conversation could probably be had for all of these initiatives at some level.
Yeah.
We could bring back sort of some of the metrics that we're thinking about in terms of being able to achieve what's realistic and what's the appropriate metric to measure for these as a follow-up to this. So you don't have to have that necessarily.
I mean, I think what everybody's saying is we want to show progress, and we want to show progress in a timely manner.
That's right.
Yeah, I think the-
something. The goal is develop and launch. It's not to develop, launch, and complete these goals. That's where I'm like, why are we setting KPIs right now for goals to develop and launch it?
Well, we know with the purchase of the deed restrictions, right, pilot program that, that's rolling out
Right. So
right now from the perspective of by October, right? There's a bar right there in terms of opening it up to businesses, things like that. I mean, I guess I'd like to see something a little stronger than these is my only point. So, in terms of, and because I also think that they'll probably potentially staff will be coming back and you'll be coming back saying, well, we might need to prioritize, what do we want to prioritize? So how do we have the information that we need to do that?
Anything else?
I'm a little confused and lost already. I think it's a lot of process without progress. Just seems like we're trying to measure stuff and knowing when we have things in a pipeline, and the rolling solicitation process is an easier metric than to figure out new metrics, I guess.
The what process?
So that's process right there, right? You're saying we're just going to develop and launch a short-term rolling solicitation process.
I mean, it's already implemented, so, right?
it's not launched. We have that ad hoc committee, but this is like a
It's not- yeah.
formal
Formal.
program.
Well, again, I think it would behoove us to let Tom and the staff come back to us with some specific ways of evaluating the success of these programs and showing that we're making progress in them, rather than us trying to come up with, okay, what is the right KPI at this point in time?
Okay. Although I would say we've got secure 50 diverse housing units. Boom, right?
Well, we aren't down there yet.
Well, no, but
We'll get there.
to me, that could be, you know, with these four. So
That's my point. I feel like I'm not understanding it. This says develop and launch. That's the goal. That is the KPI. Did we successfully launch these things? You would want to know if it was a success if it said develop, launch, and close this program, because then we would want to make sure were the funds deployed, how many people did it go to? The goal in the second bullet is to develop and launch. The goal in the next one is to deliver a set number of houses. So I don't understand what success would look like other than just confirming that it has been developed and launched.
So you're on the first bullet, develop and launch. I see your point. And that basically, you know, that we actually are, because it is a trial. And so that one is focused in on a trial. We aren't doing the trial to hit a particular number, because if we want to hit a particular number, we could change different metrics associated with that. But so I can agree with you that it's really about development and launch. But in here, ultimately, there is that measure. But I'd go back to Tom and say, what are some measurable things I want to understand at the end of the year. Were we successful, and how do we measure that? Whether we're successful, or is that the program we should not continue?
I think that's what Tom's saying he's going to do.
Yeah, well, and I was just, and I'll just respond. You're making my point, right? Is the matrix simply that we develop and launch? I'm not comfortable with that,
Got it.
right?
That's your
I mean,
problem. You
that's
don't like that it's develop and launch. You want it to develop, launch, and
and to Councilor Barnes' point, make progress, right? So it's not just we're going to put these programs in place, but what do we expect the result to be? What's a meaningful, reasonable, achievable result that we can anticipate?
So I'll chime in. I think in 1 year's time, developing and launching all three of these programs would be a meaningful achievement.
Well, and there are metrics that were adopted as part of the community plan, and we will be developing metrics as part of the strategic plan. So we can bring back specific metrics that we think are reasonable that tie directly to these. And that's our intent, to be able to show whether these are being successful, which is ultimately the increase in affordable housing.
Yeah. And I know, Amy, you want to say something.
No, except for, I agree. I'm actually okay with how it's worded. I think that's the staff's work to come up with the metrics, and they report out to us. From a high level perspective, we direct the work and our goals, and the staff then essentially implements, and we can decide if they're on the right track. So I'm okay with
Okay.
how they're written.
Okay, so we've left this at, all of these initiatives are going to be evaluated. All of them are going to be with timelines and with KPIs associated with them at the appropriate time.
Correct.
We okay? Okay, we're moving on.
I've been at this 4 years.
I know.
We need more action. I'm sorry.
Well, we do. We
Commissioner
do. But
Medine,
I would say this though, to you, Gail. I would say this about this. I'll just use the first one. Develop and launch. It's developing and launching and evaluating what works and what doesn't work. We don't know if it's going to be successful at the start. It may take us 6 months. It may take us 12 months. It may take us 2 weeks to find success in it. But we have to evaluate it first and determine what we need to do to make it successful. We're not even there yet. And so I think that when we get to the point of we launch and then we get feedback, and that feedback tells us, are we on the right track? Are we on the wrong track? Do we need to jag, cut, turn? What do we need to do? So I think I'm with you though. Specificity is great, and that's what I'm all about, quantifiable data, right? That we can quantify things. So you heard us loud and clear, Tom, right?
Loud and clear.
Okay. Yes.
Before we move on, I want to ask the question. I think we should ask this question for each of these. Is there anything else? I mean, because does anybody else, any other commissioners have something else that they're expected to see here that is not here? And so these are the initiatives. These 4 items here are the initiatives that we're looking for in terms of deploying STR funds for this year. And so I do ask the commissioners, is there anything else that you believe is missing?
Hearing none,
Silence is done. That's awesome.
we'll move on.
Fun.
Okay, this is where we're going to have a little bit of fun. And that is around, if we look at the first bullet, explore how to launch Brown Ranch development incrementally, that's really saying the what again? What are we going to do to explore how to launch Brown Ranch development incrementally? I want to hold you there for a second and then go down to the bottom around this secure 50 diverse housing units, because if I look at what's underneath there, the current initiative as well as the future one, I kind of feel that securing 50 diverse housing units is kind of a KPI associated with what I would call pursue infill opportunities, including mixed use and transit-oriented development. I think it's bigger than diverse housing units. But before we get to that, this acquiring the Campbell and CDOT properties, one of the things that's come up here on the next page you'll see is how do we prioritize these two? Can we do both of them at once? Do we have to sequence them? Do we have to prioritize? And I think as we talk about both of these, Brown Ranch and what we'll call the Campbell CDOT property, we have to come to grips with that because staff only has so many resources, and we may have to deal with this from a stagger or from a prioritization standpoint. Okay? Does that make sense? Yeah. And I don't know if you want to start at Brown Ranch or you want to have a discussion of which one of these is a bigger priority, but I'll leave that up to you all.
Well, I mean, it goes to reason that we're going to have, if the Campbell property gets acquired by the city, then we have complete control over that asset and we can start using and do what we want to do. The whole thing about the Brand Ranch and bringing affordable, attainable housing to our community is there's so many players that are outside our control. So we don't know what the master plan is for Campbell, but I think that needs to be a higher priority. However, we can't lose sight of the long-term goal with Brown Ranch that we've been trying to do, but the whole community knows it's going to be a much longer, that thing's simmering and it's going to take a long time to cook that meal. Whereas we can do something with Campbell. We want to keep it simmering. We don't want to put it in the freezer, right? Let's use some food analogies. I guess I'm hungry still, but that would be the way I would look at it.
In the instant.
Yeah.
In the instant.
I'll actually throw it the other way. I feel like we need a master plan for Brown Ranch. And once we have a master plan for Brown Ranch, that could drive what we want to do with Campbell. Because it's about West Steamboat. And so for me, developing a master plan of what we want to do, what the city and the community wants to do with that land, and as it ties into all of West Steamboat. And I think that what that master plan looks like may actually change what we want to do with Campbell.
Okay, we've heard. Go ahead, Tom.
So just a reminder to council that the direction that was provided to staff was to move forward with the governance board for decision-making of Brown Ranch. So the governing board being makeup of housing authorities, city council, county, and I think the public as well. I believe the intent of that was to have them provide some decision-making authority to move forward with Brown Ranch. So that's going to take a little time to get that board up, define their roles and responsibilities, their bylaws and whatever it is. There may be a process, and I think it's a question for Dan, whether or not there's some formal action that needs to be made by the city council and the county commissioners to create that board and to give them that decision-making authority. But I believe the direction was to give them, that governing board, that decision-making authority. And so there's naturally going to be a bit of a stagger, a phasing of the decision-making for Brown Ranch. And so I think it would be difficult, unless you want to change your mind, for council to say, we are moving forward with scenario planning, because what you have said is, we're going to give that governing body that authority to make that decision.
Okay. Other thoughts about these two properties? Yes.
I agree with Councilor Pacino. And can someone confirm, was a master plan done for Brown Ranch as part of what got shot down?
Yeah.
Yes, the Housing Authority had created a overall master plan for that project. I think there's questions as to whether or not that was the appropriate master plan, because I think some people probably didn't like that, and maybe that was the reason they voted against it. So there's probably a need to reevaluate it. I also think that the scenario planning was intended to be for a much smaller annotation and just sort of a phase one, if you will. And so that would probably have a very different program than what was originally approved.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Let's hear from you two. And then,
Seems like to me they can be kind of in synergy together with the governance board coming together. It's going to take them a while to come up with the ideas, well, to get their structure together and then get their ideas together. And at the same time, I do think what Councilor Pacino said, having control over that asset and not having too many players in the sandbox would allow us to achieve those housing goals quicker.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Dave. Okay, I had to. Yeah, are we saying that staff can't, are we concerned doing both at the same time, that we need to help?
Yeah, they're
pick or
both pretty
choose?
resource-intensive projects. I
Yeah.
mean, the comment has been, well, we just hire consultants. Well, we would need to hire consultants anyway.
Mhm.
We don't have the capability, and we're just not set up to do sort of master planning. But somebody's going to have to manage that process. The leadership team and staff is going to have to be heavily involved in evaluating what they come up with, providing them with information. So they're both pretty big, heavy lifts, given all the other initiatives that we have, particularly in planning.
Okay. Gail, any thoughts?
Just following up on Counselor Dixon's point, and I totally understand that, but I think to the extent that we could look for outside resources to help lift any of the burden, that's what I would, certainly like to see, if that's a possibility.
Just to keep it simmering.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, right, or, yes.
Okay, so let me just feedback what I think I'm hearing from the majority of you is, if we go down to the bottom of the page there, that future initiative around assemble the parcels development master plan of the site is the number one priority here. And that at the same token, we should be looking into the governance side of things around Brown Ranch and seeing where that leads. And then based on that, we can determine if we are in a position to gain additional resources or whatnot, or if we want to from the Brown Ranch side of things.
And Tom, can you just set an expectation? And I know we won't hold you to this, but in terms of when you're talking about Campbell and CDOT, what's a realistic time frame to think about when the first shovel might go in the ground?
I don't know that I can give you a prediction on when the shovel can go on around, but I could probably commit to having, we've already evaluated what it would take to do sort of a master planning process. The estimate was that we could probably accomplish that by the end of the year, provided that we move forward with the purchase and that all goes through based on the deadlines that we have. I do think when I first looked at sort of the initial timeline and process steps to accomplish that, I think there might need to be a little bit more public involvement in that. So that might extend it. So it might take us into Q1 of next year. But I think that's a realistic expectation, somewhere between the end of the year and into Q1 of next year for master planning it. And then if there's buy-in and we found the funding and we can move forward, then I think it's reasonable to probably start thinking about formalizing that development plan, we'd have to go through the development process, the entitlement process. That takes some time. So, That's the issue with all of these housing initiatives is that there's long lead times, and that's just the nature of the beast. That's the nature of the beast for Brown Ranch, for inclusionary and IZ zoning. They just have long lead times. So I don't know. I don't even know if I want to speculate when we could get a shovel in the ground. But I think the first step is to really understand what it is we want to develop, and we can accomplish that hopefully by the end of the year.
All right, thank you.
So I was looking at this from the perspective of priorities, because if I read your paragraph down there, basically that you felt that the Campbell property, both the Campbell property and Brown Ranch governance is a, intensive job, and we, so can you do both? And so I read that as saying is no.
Let's say the scenario planning for Brown Ranch is a heavy lift. The governance piece is doable.
Tom, do you foresee any like budgetary constraints if we're down 5% in sales tax this year that would affect either one of these initiatives?
Yes.
One disproportionately to the other?
Yes, that's a concern. I haven't identified what that is yet, but that's a concern.
Which would be a better, would there be one that's more feasible, knowing that we might have shortfalls, or it wouldn't really matter either way?
I don't know that that would matter. It might delay it a little bit, but it would certainly solidify the issue of not being able to do both at the same time.
And can SDR funds be used for the master planning of Campbell property?
You'd have to ask that gentleman.
Gentlemen. All right.
Yes, to the extent that the project ends up being a housing project.
So the what is, are we in agreement that that future initiative at the bottom there after the current initiative, obviously we have to get that across the finish line, Kelly. And that the future initiative, and having that completed hopefully by the end of the year. Ish. Are we all aligned to that?
Get things done.
I'm
Thumbs
just going
up?
to ask, I'm for that. Where does this secure 50 diverse housing units fit in, though? I mean,
Yeah, I was going to ask.
Well, I'll get to that. I just wanted to get to, are we okay with that one? Yes?
so it's not necessarily under secure 50. We're okay. What you're asking is we're okay with those two sub bullets.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Are we okay?
Yes.
Okay. So that leaves then this secure 50 diverse housing units, which, again, I went back and I said, really what we're trying to do here is to pursue infill opportunities, whether they're mixed use, whether they're transit-oriented development or whatever they are. And obviously Campbell and CDOT is an example of that. The 50 diverse housing units, we don't have a specific place to put those yet, but do you feel that we need to say 50 housing units somewhere, somehow? I would like to see more than that personally. But again, with the lead time that we have, where do you see those units coming
That's
from?
my problem. You're setting yourself with a goal that we're not going to achieve by the end of the year. So let's be realistic to it. What do we have on the drawing board right now that's going to generate 50 units? Okay, right now we have the short-term rental deed restriction that could generate, we don't know what. So I mean, I see having some numbers up there.
We have the Cottonwood Phase 1 that'll generate 50 units.
Then, right. So I mean,
So that's,
setting
that's,
ourselves up for a success already, then why worry about it? But my point is, if you have a matrix in there that throws out 50 units and we're saying those are new units that we haven't thought about, that's a whole nother discussion. Because that's unachievable right now in February. We got 11 months and that's not going to happen. It's the projects that we have in the ground that are coming up right now. And if those are going to be 50 units that we can put a matrix on, other than that, it's just vapor.
I think the 50 units is a no-brainer based on what's going to come out in the next few months.
Did we buy down 50 units from the Cottonwoods? I can't remember. Do we remember how many?
Phase 1 is, I'm calling it 50. It might be,
It's fine. If
48 or-
confident we bought down.
a subsidy over 100,000 on every one.
What's the point of setting a goal that we've already achieved other than
There is
pat
no-
ourselves on the back?
There is no point. That's why I didn't want to
Makes me
leave
feel good.
that bold bullet there, because I don't really think it's very meaningful.
You would propose to change it to that language about mixed-use development?
Yeah, pursuing infill opportunities, including
I would-
mixed use and transit-oriented development.
I would support that than this 50 units.
I would too.
Agreed.
It might be nice to put in, I mean, we've got this potentially the school board, right? I mean, the school district. I mean, we know that there's things in the pipeline.
Well, not really.
Take a number.
Not really.
Board is,
That's,
I think we need-
that just put the stops on that.
Is there anything we're missing as far as the unit count for Prop 123 money, or is that evaporated and gone now? In other words, I think we're doing a unit count right towards,
Already achieved it, right?
we already achieved it all?
We're looking.
Brad, do you want to come up and speak to that?
Oh, he just kind of, him and hawed.
Just didn't know if that should be part of our,
That would be a good goal.
I'd say I have no idea.
Hi, Brett Calvert, Planning Department. The eyeballing was, it depends on what you hear from the state. So we have two primary projects that we will use to try to make that commitment work. One is going to be Cottonwoods, which we think is essentially 24 units. In that phase will qualify. And then there actually is a provision in Prop 123 to do naturally occurring affordable housing, and the changeover at Riverview may result in some of those units counting. So those are the two primary things. We got to sort of put all our documentation together and say to the state, do these count? Do you agree with our sort of finding a recommendation that we have met our commitment? So that'll be a focus really over the next 2 months or so.
Okay, thanks, Brad. Are we okay with that one?
What I hear you saying is you're going to change that to pursue infill opportunities for affordable housing
Yes,
projects.
for affordable housing projects,
And-
whatever they are.
Change that language.
Okay.
We're getting rid of 50 diverse units and replacing it.
And again, we can bring back some metrics that help to demonstrate success or lack thereof for that zone.
Okay. So up to the first one, the current initiative around completing Brown Ranch Community Solutions Project by developing governance structure and complete land use scenario planning. I believe, Tom, you're good with up to governance structure for this year, and the complete scenario planning is really kind of to be determined
EBD, yes.
whether we can work that in or not this year.
Well, and it'll partly be up to the governance board.
Yeah. Are we good with that, gang?
So taking
as a-
out complete land use scenario planning, is that what you're proposing?
How about as appropriate?
Whatever, it's up to the board, it's up to the governance board to decide, is what we're saying.
So then we
What-
should remove it.
Yeah, we would remove that if that's the direction.
I would
We-
vote to remove it. The governance board's going to do it.
Mhm.
Have we made that explicitly clear that that's the role of the governance structure?
I don't think so.
I don't know that you've made that explicitly clear. I think that's part of the creation of that is trying to fully articulate what the roles and responsibilities and authority that group has.
I got to ask one question, because has the county bought into this? Because I want to make sure that we don't agree to something that the county has not
Has the county bought into what?
governance, the governance structure.
Having, Tom?
They have indicated their buy into it. They've assigned Angelica as their liaison, and so they've
Okay.
said that they want to be part of it, as does the Housing Authority.
I'm going to lean into my colleague here. I feel strongly about leaving that in the complete land use scenario planning, mostly just because of what we experienced, right? I mean, we did have a master plan the first time around, and that certainly wasn't enough. So I guess I'd like to see it, still, I'm concerned about just deleting it when we don't quite know where it fits in. I mean, but again, with acknowledgement, I mean, so whatever fuzzy words we need to put in there to give us a little bit of leeway, but
You'd be okay in complete land use scenario planning if recommended by the governance.
well, I don't know that we know that that's going to be within the scope of the governance. I'd say something like if appropriate, right? Or
But just because it's not listed here doesn't mean it's not going to be worked on, correct?
Is it, yeah, specifically, we're identifying goals for the city council as we move forward. And so the question is this for the 2026 fiscal year going to be a goal that we're going to spend resources on and our staff's going to say, hey, they gave us that direction. And so I agree. I do not want the Brown Ranch to lose. We've lost momentum, but we do not need to turn it off. We need to keep it going, right? A little bit of our town and our community needs to work. And I think we're doing that with the community builders in this phase 2. I don't know if it's a master plan moving forward, but I think we're still going to determine what that is. So I don't know how to make that a goal or not. I don't know if we need to make it a goal. I feel confident that, Tom, we can keep it on the forefront of, your city manager report, that we keep, focusing on this. I think we really need to work with the governance, with the housing authority, and work in partnership with them. So it's just a much bigger unknown goal is my only fear about, I don't want to take it out, but I know we're going to be working on it.
How about instead of complete, commence?
Sure.
Commence works. At least it's
Is
on.
that another way to say start?
Because I think it's realistic to
Launch.
say that if we get, we make pretty good progress on the Campbell Ranch and it's a little bit pushed out, then we can probably commit to
Okay.
launch or commencing that
Maybe
process.
launch? Yeah, I like, just change that word to launch.
Okay. Is there anything else around this particular outcome around diverse housing options? Are we good? Can we move on? Okay, good job. Transportation and mobility. Again, let's talk about the RTA because both of those are new initiatives. And those really talk about the impact on our SST really around both of those.
All of these are well-written. I'm serious. These are I like these goals right here.
The first two bullets, the first two under
Yeah.
the RTA?
Mhm.
Okay. Mr. RTA, how do you feel?
We're basically, this year is going to be focused on getting the board up, or sorry, getting the RTA authority registered and established, and trying to figure out a funding model. And if you want to add anything, we'd probably start scenario planning, for transportation. But really it's focused on getting a director in there, that's who's in the first job is going to work through a funding model.
Okay, any other comments on that? I assume, Tom, that you're okay with making those new initiatives, putting them in place.
So before he answers, the one thing is basically, and we don't know, and maybe, Pacino will help me. What part of this do we need from the city this year? Because a lot of it's going to be done from the Transportation Authority perspective, but we need the different cities to actually participate. And I don't know how to answer that just yet because we've only met really, 3 short meetings. So I don't know if you had any thoughts on that.
No, I think that's why I thought as these with goals and are realistic, I think that the RTA is going to be a lot heavier load this year for the other communities who don't have a transportation system. We already have one. This doesn't affect our system. To them, the RTA is a much bigger deal. We just got to keep it in there and help setting it up and standing it up. So to me, that's, and then when the second initiative, I got to say, begin planning on possible shared resource opportunities with the RTA. Again, we got to hire, we got to do all these other steps. And that's just a new initiative that we can start looking at toward the, Q3 and Q4 to be realistic what's happening. And really, when I see partnership or shared resources, that's looking at Craig and Hayden and what else we're going to do. But to me, this was broad enough, but yet specific to let others kind of work on it, and that it is a priority for me. That's the way I looked at it.
Okay, are we okay with that one? All right, let's go on to the second one, increase intracity mobility with multimodal transportation. As you can see, there's 2 current initiatives, 1 new one. Comments?
Fantastic. These are all 3, especially the new initiative with the copper zone, really identifying the west side of town, which is something people have been asking about, making that a goal for us to really look at. This is why we establish goals, something that's a little bit farther reaching, but it's impactful to our community. That is a really good goal.
And just so I'm clear, I mean, utilize 2027 funding to operate. So does that mean it's a 2027 initiative?
Yes.
Yeah. And I'm so glad to see 7 new buses. Are we going to have a party to dispose of the 7 old buses or not?
Have an old-fashioned bonfire. Oh, wait, you can make money on those. Never mind.
So being new to all this, is there any ever been any discussion about bringing the bus service out to Steamboat 2 and Heritage Park?
That's what that copper zone is.
But that's not within the city limits, though.
Oh, you're right. You're right. You're right. I stand corrected. What you were talking about is the reason for the RTA being formed, because it's in the county. So no, not within our, I've been trying to get us to get, city buses to go out there to the school. I would raise the budget just for that, but it doesn't get a lot of support. The only support, I know, but the only support that we get fully is because the RTA is really what that's for.
What we learned from the negotiation with the resort last year is our transit is at capacity. We are at 100%. So even if we needed to buy additional buses, we would then need to build new bays. We would need to build an extra space of facilities to hold new buses. So there's no extra capacity anywhere to do anything more. That is the problem. We're at this threshold where we need to invest in capital.
But that goes back to that shared goal, right? And the one right before it, it said shared resource opportunities with the RTA. We are going to be the voice for Steamboat 2 and Heritage Park because they're really part of the city of Steamboat. They're so close. So to me, that's where we can really help them out.
Okay, everybody good? Let's look at the next one, improve pedestrian and bicycle safety throughout the community. 3 current initiatives, and at the top of the next page, there's 1 new. How do we feel about that?
I didn't say anything about getting rid of e-bikes.
Oh, Michael.
I need that you ask.
Wait, did I say that out loud?
I need that you ask. I did ask about that, right? Because I thought we talked about it we did talk a little bit, and I don't remember where we landed on e-bikes at the goal setting.
E-bikes with kids. I don't mind an e-bike, but
it's, and
Parks and Rec is working through it right now.
I don't know how you'd like to handle that, Tom, because I had asked Matt and just for an update on that. Do you want to?
Yeah.
And I don't know that the email just came in late, so because I asked the question late.
Matt, do you want to come down and
kind of tell us where we are on
give
that?
us an update on, I know you sent an email, but it'd be easier for you just to speak to it.
Yeah, good evening, City Council. Matt Barnard, Development Manager, sitting in for Angela tonight. Should I just read the email? Would you like that? I mean, it's pretty, sure, it can be concise.
ready yet.
In response to a growing safety concerns related to e-bike usage in city trails and roadways, the Parks and Recreation Commission hosted a collaborative discussion with representatives from Parks and Recreation Department, Police Department, and Routt County riders. The conversation focused on the complexities, challenges, and opportunities of adapting trail and multimodal infrastructure, as well as developing appropriate regulations, education, and enforcement strategies to ensure safe and equitable use to all community members. From that first discussion, Parks and Recreation Commission supported the foundation of a community group to address e-bike safety. The group has met twice in 2026 and is developing a plan to increase in e-bike awareness and partner collaboration. This effort is being supported again by Steamboat Springs Police Department, Routt County Riders, Parks and Recreation Commission, and Parks and Recreation staff. The objective is to have an e-bike awareness event in early summer of 2026. No plans to report an update to City Council currently. Drew Pickle and Stephanie Monroe are both kind of driving this initiative for us, but right now we're just kind of developing and getting ready for some awareness this summer.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
How do we feel about the new initiative?
Where is it?
At the top of page 1.5, explore traffic control, red light camera options with CDOT to reduce pedestrian-related traffic incident in a measurable manner.
That's fine. So may I?
Mhm.
I'm in. So I love the goal. I don't love the initiatives. They feel almost perfunctory. If I said that right. It's stuff we're doing, and I am looking for more transformative pedestrian and bicycle safety, what other communities are doing. So I'm talking about, I don't want to get into the how, but I feel like I'm not verbalizing what I'm looking for. So examples like having stronger, build a connected all ages and abilities active transportation network. This means that you prioritize development of protected bike lanes, separated multi-use paths, and low-stress neighborhood bikeways. Upgrade and standardize bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure design. So if you look to other cities, even Colorado Springs, of all cities, no shade for Colorado Springs, but Boulder, we would all expect Boulder to be doing this. Another one, expand bicycle network quality. I feel like we're missing the mark. Make safety, visibility, and signage a core strategy. This past fall, I think I mentioned at one of our meetings, we had a pedestrian hit at the corner of Walton Creek Road and Whistler at that four-way stop. And someone almost hit me the other day because they ran the stop sign. So those are the things I feel like we're missing the mark on those initiatives. And I get some might have budget implications, which I would expect staff to bring back and we decide them, but it doesn't have enough teeth for me for what I'm looking for and asking for.
Can you put in words what you would be looking for to initiative for a goal like this?
I'd like to hear the how.
You want me to tell you how to do it? I thought we weren't talking about how.
No, he's messing with you. Don't go.
Dave? Okay, I'll say a how.
Well, I would like examples because I'm not sure what you actually mean. I mean,
Okay.
Get the signage part, that seems pretty self-evident, but
Bike lane. So upgrade and standardize bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure design. So that would include, and this is the how, so I will only do a couple examples so I don't go down a rabbit hole. Update city engineering standards to require buffered or protected bike lanes where feasible. High visibility crosswalks and enhanced pedestrian crossings at high-risk locations, leading pedestrian intervals and signal timing, which I think that CDOT will probably get to. So those are examples of, I can go on, Dave, on, how there are examples on how you can accomplish this.
So I hear you and I agree with you. And it's really about separating out the different mobilities, across the board. And as I think about that in terms of trying to implement it, we don't even get sidewalks in, and we're struggling to even get sidewalks in, and so I'm trying to think through here realistically. what can we do? It's a problem. I don't have an answers. I don't want to, I know what the Front Range has done, like Colorado Springs and Fort Collins and Boulder. They're solving a different problem. I mean, they're putting up dividers in the street because they don't need to deal with snowplows.
No, I like,
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
well
and
aware
I-
of
so I
all of
support-
that.
I support you, but I don't know I'm trying to think through. And so maybe the step to get there is, I hate to say the consultant, but basically help having somebody look at the problem and come up with some solutions and ideas.
Could we say something around those intersections, like identify and remediate high-risk pedestrian and vehicle interactive intersections? That seems like a tangible goal, and maybe there's a few and you can have an elevated crosswalk and stuff like that. That seems, I mean, it is small, but tangible.
I think, I agree with this, with traffic cameras and stoplight tickets and people running through red lights. I think those are like in stop signs. Those are just like some of the biggest hazards we have. Seems like the impatience factor seems to really put people, especially when you're, in that ski house light where you don't know it's green arrow and then it's right on red and people are walking across. But I mean, we have a pretty incredible bike system and, everything, the new projects that we're doing like Pine Grove and putting in the bike lanes when we can, when we do redo those infrastructure projects. I currently don't find it to be that big of a problem. I know there are problem areas. So when problem areas coming up, identifying those and affecting resources to it. But I think we have a pretty cool system now, E-bikes are tough, but so are the guys on their, bikes doing 30 miles an hour on their own power coming down bike paths. So, I mean, those are all, it's hard to do 25 or 30 miles an hour on a bike path and avoid pedestrians.
Well, that's the point. You shouldn't be doing 25, 30, even on a non-pedal assist on the bike path. You should be on the road, but people don't feel safe being on the road. So they're all piling onto our bike path. I actually share with Brian when I ride my bike from my house down to Emerald to go on a ride. I said, I never take the bike path for that very reason. I take River Road. And Brian was like, oh my God, you're crazy.
That's really safe.
But I know, but like that's, so if you all disagree, but that's what I've been trying, if not now, when, if we think this is a problem, we need to have stronger initiatives around it.
And I would say that's certainly one of the things that we hear the most about at the farmers market in the summer is exactly that. It's people on the core trail worried about getting run over, people going too fast. And also, and I will put the pin in e-bikes. That is the second, I think, certainly most popular thing that we hear about at the farmers market.
Tom, what
That's
can,
an enforcement issue.
yeah.
And we can evaluate that and I can talk to Parks and Rec and police services about that. It's not an infrastructure issue, that's an enforcement issue. So I heard a little bit with Councilor Dixon talking about infrastructure improvements, which we have a sidewalk master plan that we're trying to implement. In some cases in the existing built environment, the roads just are not built for cars, pedestrians and bicycles. It would require significant infrastructure upgrades to accommodate all three of those modes. So I like the suggestion of improving our engineering standards if we haven't already to make sure that we have buffered bike lanes where we're building new roads. I think that's an appropriate step. But the process of implementing our sidewalk master plan and our other mobility plan, transportation mobility plan, that's the process and that's the step that we're going to take. And that's just going through the CIP, which unfortunately those compete against a lot of other also needed projects. So highlighting those intersections that are dangerous, I think is key. Some improvements to the sequencing of the lights and either in cameras in downtown, which is a significant problem area, I think is probably a big step that we can take. I hear you, and we can talk to John and see if there's some other initiatives that we can come up with to try to address that issue. So.
Okay, thank you. I feel heard, so thank you.
Okay,
But yeah.
good discussion.
And I think but I do think it is kind of the lack of the infrastructure that drives the problems on the core trail.
Yeah,
Right.
yes, I agree. And we can talk about, we've talked about that. Again, it's resources, and whether we want to be, stopping kids going too fast. But I do think that there's an awareness issue. Certainly that's the first step is education. And then looking at, additional enforcement and sort of how to go about that in a, community-friendly way, I think is important. One follow-up, though, is that last bullet, is the cameras. Red light cameras, I think we're going to evaluate that. That's a significant step. And I just want to make sure that we have council support to try looking at that and moving forward with that, because that is a significant step that other communities have taken. It's highly effective and highly impactful to the community. And so I just want to make sure that I have direction to move forward with that, if you're wanting us to.
Can you expand on impactful?
Chamber will be filled with upset citizens.
Yeah, I think there's a sense of Big Brother watching type reaction to it when you're driving down the street and you happen to run a red light and the light flashes and then you get a ticket in the mail. The revenue of that does not come to the city. That's contracted out. So the intent is purely behavior change. And that can rub people the wrong way at times.
I think, in some communities, they also have cameras on like Steamboat Boulevard or Fish Creek Falls Road, and they'll give tickets for going too fast, not just running a red light. So we're not going full tilt into this, which you could do. So I would support it at the red lights personally. How does everybody else feel?
I think it's a COVID era problem that, came along with COVID, and it's just kind of that, where are you going so fast to get to the next red light?
Thumbs up on that, everyone? Okay. Tom, you good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Can I just ask, where are we going to land on e-bikes?
In terms
Leave
of
that to the
what?
next
Enforcement?
We just, are we, yeah, to the extent that addressing what we know is an issue that's being brought to us by the community. So I heard you say enforcement.
Yeah, I think
Certainly there's the awareness, but
I think the message that I'm getting from city council is sort of an awareness program is probably not enough. And we will take that message back to that group that's working on that and see if that they can come up with some other ideas to.
Is there consensus among council that we want to really push this? Like, I don't want to touch I would say, I don't want to touch the e-bike situation. It is a lose-lose. So I have no interest in picking that up. So I feel the complete opposite of you. So I would be curious what the pulse on council is.
yeah, I guess I just don't want to be the council that's responsible when somebody gets hit
Totally.
or killed.
And we're also going to have the situation where it's like, you're telling me I can't have it. It is a lose-lose situation.
I believe there is a middle ground or that we need to take right now, because it's not just kids. But there's people going too fast on e-bikes on the Core Trail. Absolutely. I'm on the Core Trail all the time. And, and so we need some type of traffic calming of the e-trail with the e-bikes.
Speed bumps.
Yeah, speed bumps. To circle back, the Parks and Rec, what is that team that's built? What's its name and what's its ultimate goal again?
Wait, is this about our goal?
No,
Does this
well, I
have
want
do
to
with our goals?
understand whether this other organization, what the group that Parks and Rec has put together, if there's anything that we can tap into that can start, looking at the issue.
That's the how.
Yeah, I would say in the interest of time, why don't we circle back with that group, relay the message that council's got some concerns that maybe an awareness program isn't quite enough, that we probably need to do a little bit more than that, not draconian measures, and get back to council on follow-up to sort of what some of the recommendations might be, particularly along the Core Trail, focusing primarily on the Core Trail.
All right, good. Let's move on to fiscal sustainability, financial stewardship. You could see that first initiative there, the Stormwater Utility Management Plan, which is being worked on. And you also see a new initiative there around trying to understand revenue, diversification opportunities, et cetera. We've done that twice before, by the way, in 2004 or 5 and 2013. And with similar results both times in terms of property tax and some other options there. So that's there. And then the third one is around the fire district consolidation. How does council feel about these?
I would remove the second thing to find an additional, or wherever that is, additional revenue sources.
And the
I don't know.
reason being?
We've been through this. It sounds good, and then the pressure ramps up over time. And I just don't, realistically, I do not see a council being interested in implementing this until the community says it's necessary. We're proactively trying to implement a solution that no one's really asking for. And it would take a unique group of 7 individuals be willing to sit up here and look all those upset citizens in the face and say, we're putting this on a ballot.
I'm not willing to kick the can down the road further. I believe this council is its responsibility is to figure out where we need to go in the future. We keep on talking about our funding models, and we know that we're short, especially in Parks and Rec, in terms of what people, what our community is asking us for, and so I absolutely support bill number 2. In fact, I support all 3. I think to borrow Councilor Pacino's statement, I think they're well written, and I'm happy with all 3 of those.
Yeah, I am too. I hear you, Brian. I think we're going to be getting probably an update from Kim, our finance director, on sales tax projections. And I think we all know it's not going to look good. So I'm okay with keeping it still.
I mean, I am as well. And I think though we need to be realistic and know that this is going to take time and it's going to take a lot of community outreach. And we certainly shouldn't be looking or thinking that this would be something that we could put on the ballot in 26. As much as, or in terms of bullet number 2.
I think from the CAS meeting, I'm a proponent of bringing in Magellan to, especially because they've dealt with these surveys and finding out what the public would tolerate, what they wouldn't tolerate. Will give us more direction on that second initiative. As you probably guess, I'm not a fan of the stormwater utility management plan. I do support the consolidation of the fire district. Well, I feel the stormwater utility plan is it's a revenue grab. And, I think if we want to do big things, that's going to hurt us.
It's a justified money grab, in a sense.
I think we should be careful about how, as city councilors, we are talking about it. I think words matter. It's not a money grab.
Not a money grab.
So I think words
Paying for a service.
matter when we sit up here. So I just ask respectfully.
No, and I would agree that we're not going to get a property tax on this year's ballot, but we have been leaning toward a property tax, and a lot of the people that come talk to me are saying it's about frickin' time.
Yeah, I've heard.
So why don't we have the political will to do it? I have the political will to do it because I've been telling you for 6 years that people have been telling me, when are we going to start doing this? I agree with the initiative that we need to find out what do we direct it toward? What will the community be able to bite off for? But more importantly, this year is going to be the example of why we need a fiscal plan in case sales tax drops. We have to have a diversified income for this city because of the services that this community expects and the recreation that they love. That's why they're here. So let's stop kicking the can and letting the man behind the tree pay for it, all our tourists. And let's talk about where the property tax can go. You guys aren't willing to say that word. I don't know why. We need a property tax, and we've had for a while. So I don't know if I got support with you guys here, but
I will not sabotage this, but I reserve the right to say I told you so when this crashes and burns.
absolutely.
In 26 or 27.
Let's do a
You were
quick,
right, Ryan.
let's do a quick thumbs up or thumbs down on the stormwater utility management plans. All those thumbs up for that? Okay, 6-1. The second one around analyzing diversification revenue opportunities. Okay, we got a majority there. Fire
How we're going to analyze, that's the question.
how we're going to analyze what?
What tools are we going to use to analyze?
Staff.
Well,
is doing the how.
We'll let you know.
Snyder's got it in
Back
his
to us.
bag, man. He's got it dialed in.
Has a pile of dusty decks that she's
Yeah,
pulled together with
probably.
blood, sweat, and tears.
Fire district.
Thumbs up.
Down in fire district, got a thumbs up there. So we have a thumbs up on all three. All right, I want to bring up one other thing real quickly. I don't want to get sidetracked onto it, but it's an opportunity in my view to make downtown more vibrant than it is. And it also means then that sales tax revenue could be impacted by that, as well as retailers' revenue and profits. I was at something the other week. Councilor Barnes was there. I didn't see anybody else. 400 realtors down at the base of the mountain talking about $2,500 a square foot properties. And they were kind of proud of that. But all that development down there is great at the base of the mountain. It's zoned for that and everything else. But, when you start putting in all that stuff, it's going to pull away from downtown too. People can go to the Stockman and maybe never leave in 3 or 4 years. So I just wanted to bring this up to you because it has come up, and I don't want to get sidetracked into codes, okay? But we, 6 years ago, we came up with the downtown plan right around COVID hit, and the downtown plan, and to make some adjustments to the CDC. We also came up with a community canvas plan subsequent to that. And just for example, we have right now the CDC in certain zones has 38-foot building heights. The Steamboat Springs downtown plan says 42. The community canvas says 45. Now there's different examples of that going on in Steamboat. And this downtown plan's been sitting there for 6 years with no ordinances being written to change the code. Adopted, excuse me. And so what I'm suggesting is that, for example, I'm not just talking about hotels, but for example, a good boutique, nice hotels in downtown could do a lot for sales tax and retailers in town. So all I'm asking as part of a fiscal strategy is that we really take a close look at these three different documents and decide what we want to do moving forward, and only have one, and get ourselves through with planning to recommend and agree on one code.
So you're saying some of the conflicts that are in the current CDC are black and white. That's what developers have to look at.
Well, they have to look at the CDC, yes.
But the plans, like the adopted downtown plan, has different criteria in there, which is now it's not codified. So it's just a suggestion.
No, it's never.
What you're wanting to say is if some of these plans that have been implemented and adopted, we want to have them brought up as ordinance so we can start encouraging further development downtown.
I want to at least have a discussion.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Isn't that kind of the next step of the community canvas? To some
Yeah,
extent
with
too,
any
is going,
with any plan, there's an implementation step or steps. And I think President Muntean's talking about some of the recommendations in the downtown plan that talk about dimensional standards and uses, right? We saw that when we came the other night with use by right for hotels in downtown. That was an implementation step of the downtown plan. So there is always this sort of timeline where there's a discrepancy between some recommendations in a plan, and that's all it is a recommendation. and then codifying it or the implementation phase. And I think that's what President Montina is referring to. So I will say, as we discussed, that none of these are slam dunks, as we've seen, right? Some of what is a recommendation in a plan is by no means when the rubber hits the road, is going to be accepted by the community or by council. So we can certainly do this. I've had this conversation with Steve and Rebecca, and we've got some ideas on how to move this forward, but it doesn't mean it's going to be a slam dunk.
So what is this?
This is being
Yeah. I mean, are we
primarily
looking at
implementing.
Is it a goal?
looking at 3 different plans? Are we just specifically saying we want to look at the downtown area? I'm not clear in terms of what the ask is.
I think you should clarify what you're referring to.
Well, I'm just saying that I don't want developers and builders coming to this town and saying, well, here's the downtown plan that says this, here's the community canvas that says that, but neither of these things have been implemented yet by city council. They're just sitting there, so we still got to go by the code. If we have these other things, we should at least sit down and have a rational discussion of which one we want to have moving forward to make sure we have a vibrant community downtown. So that's what I want to do.
I would love to see this downtown development plan. Do I have it? I don't think I have. Do I have it?
Well, it's our downtown plan.
Okay.
Kind of like the West Steamboat Plan or the Mountain
Okay.
Area Plan. It was adopted right around COVID. So it's online, it's
Online. Okay.
available, we can get it to you.
No.
But there are recommendations in there about increasing heights, some of the buildings, some of the setbacks, that type of thing, some of the dimensional standards in order to allow slightly higher densities. So those are the recommendations. That's also within the community canvas as well. So what Steve is saying is just move forward, try to move forward with the implementation of those recommendations. There'll be a full public process to do that. And you'll have plenty of opportunity to weigh in, but
So pulling this into a discussion on goals,
Yeah.
Yeah.
how do we say that? I mean, are we going to now add this as a initiative or a goal?
Well, I think,
Keep it on the context of today's work session.
yes, I think we should. And I think that Rebecca has expressed some level of capacity to help us get through this.
Aren't these the same people that are working on Campbell and Round Ranch? Isn't the same staff?
yeah, I think what we're talking about is a pretty limited code amendment. It's a pretty limited code amendment. It's not a
So
heavy,
just height? And we're just,
it's a few of the dimensional standards
Consolidate
that are.
plans. It's to look
not
at these
just time.
plans and trying to codify them. That's all.
no, but it's looking at at least 3 different documents for downtown. I mean,
I mean, they wrote the documents. It's.
I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but if I'm looking at that versus housing, I'm going to vote for housing in terms of resources.
I don't think it's at that point.
I think this is
I
doable.
don't think it's,
Heavy lift.
yeah, I don't think it's a heavy lift in terms of staff work. It might be heavy lift in terms of having a discussion up here with council.
Mhm.
And you're talking about just the downtown plan.
Correct.
Yes,
So I would.
we need this. Okay,
Does anyone else?
I'll support this.
Yeah, are we creating an
Are we
initiative?
supporting
What are we
staff
supporting?
recommendation?
No, just giving,
What are we supporting?
well,
Just
I think this falls under fiscal sustainability of looking at our code and how it's going to work in terms of developing downtown and into the future and making sure it's a vibrant, prosperous downtown moving forward. That's how I'm looking at it.
It's environmental sustainability.
So
What's the next
Going to
one?
be all
Like, you
geothermal?
vote for it.
A geothermal district?
Geothermal.
Okay.
we will come back with some language that references that as a goal.
Thank you.
I want to clarify that you do want to move forward with some sort of task force to look at city expenses, revenues, and identify what the problem statement is.
Yes,
That was the goal.
yes, we had a thumbs up in the majority on that.
Okay, I just want to look at Kim to see, Kim, are you clear on what that means? And if you're not, now's your opportunity
Okay.
to get some clarification because
So actually, I want to clarify that because it is, the first sentence is the problem statement.
correct.
And then, but then but then the second sentence is determine, if a goal is greater, what's the goal in terms of greater diversification? So it's more than just the problem statement. It is problem statement and then some recommendations of how to solve those problems.
Yeah, that's the way it's stated.
Yeah, Kim Weber, Finance Director. Thank you for the opportunity. There is a lot packed in this. So what I heard your guys' comments didn't really line up with this. It was more like, oh yeah, we want to hear from staff. We want to hear property tax. We want to get the community involved. Task force would be a little bit more like, if anyone remembers the Tax Policy Advisory Committee that we've had 2 or 3 times, I think, to talk about property tax versus sales tax diversification. I heard consultant. So I would like a little bit, I can do a task force, a community task force to determine what or come back to city council to figure out what the problem statement is and then possible solutions. We could do it as staff and a consultant. We can do it as staff. Really looking to you guys to see where we want to go with this.
How was it done the last 2 times?
Staff presentations, just staff saying, here's all the different types of revenue diversification we could do. Talk to Tom a little bit. I think we probably need to start on the expense side first and say, this is where we're falling short in our services. And here are the ways to solve that instead of starting at the revenue side. Just trying to do it different to see if it'll.
For the 4th time, maybe that will.
I think, maybe I'm wrong, but I don't think we need community input to put together a problem statement. I think how we solve those problems is where the community needs to be involved in.
So more community outreach on the solution side,
And the solution options.
the solution options.
I want to, because I'm expecting that we'll have different, we can go direction A, B, or C, and that's where the community can help us, decide, yeah.
Not that I'm stuck on it, but I mean, again, I go back to the surveys that Magellan was putting out, knowing that he's dealt with a bunch of mountain towns and understanding what the people will vote for is as important as to what it's funding. Seems like you can have a great initiative, but not get the public support behind it. So figuring out which way to skin the cat is probably as important as how it gets done.
But as the dissenter, like, you guys know what the answer is. We're the only mountain town without a property tax. Like, that's the thing.
We're not, but we're close.
Have a parks.
We're one of 6
Like,
in Colorado.
No.
I like Kim's idea of, okay, once again, having staff put together, but I like the idea of having it driven by expenses, because I agree the property tax, for this conversation, to me, it's not about should we do a property tax, yes or no. It's more about, if we have a property tax, where are those funds being designated to support? To me, that's what the community would support. And so I think for us to see the expenses on, I think we can all probably say it's Parks and Rec. But maybe that's a place.
No, I bet there's some directors up there that would.
I know, someone probably, John Snyder's probably disagreeing with me. That would be my suggestion.
And what are the options? Because I know other communities give back sales tax rebates. I mean, right? So I think looking at the full complement of what the potential options are.
So I'm not hearing like full board task force. It's more like on staff driven to start with. And then when there's a time for solutions, then bring in more community engagement and potentially a consultant for sure.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if we
think I have
remember
clear
the
direction.
vacancy tax, we decided on, I think, someone moving forward with that. And then we had our pollster, whomever, actually then gauge the interest. So we didn't do that beforehand. We decided on a potential tax stream and then went out and said, does the community support this?
I do think it would be helpful, though, not to get into the how as much, but to have those pollings happen when we're talking about expenditures
Love it. Then, yeah. Yep.
in services. So, okay,
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Kim.
And Magellan Strategies, I think their name is, they are scheduled on a work session. So he'll be coming to give that presentation, and that'd be a good opportunity to ask some of those questions at that point. It won't be targeted, obviously, to us, but it'll be an example of what he can do and what he has done in other communities.
Okay, is there anything else around these best practices for transparency? Any comments on any of those? I mean, the last two are new, but I think those are things that we would welcome. Is that true?
Yeah, yes, absolutely. I mean, I guess I was, in terms of the fourth bullet, by the end of 2026.
I'm sorry, Gail, what bullet?
Oh, in terms of, if you're looking at best practices for transparency, the fourth bullet, create the quarterly financial report by the end of 2026.
Yes.
We don't think we could do it soon, like mid 2026?
I think it's a matter of we're already towards the end of, I mean, we can ask, but I think that's probably a realistic goal. If they had
Or even third quarter or something like that. Yeah.
it felt like they could do it earlier, I think they probably would have put it, but I don't want to commit them to something they don't think they can achieve. So.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, because again, this goes back into the the transparency, it's building the case, right? So from the perspective of the more information that can get out there and can be shared, it just strengthens our case.
Are we okay to move on to Brian's favorite, environmental sustainability?
Yep.
Okay, there's a lot there. You get a whole page there and a half. No, a whole page. So a lot of current initiatives there. Couple future ones or new ones at the bottom there of page 1.6. Thoughts?
What support do we get from the Climate Action Plan Collaborative, or is that built into this as well? Or is this all city staff? Makes sense.
Hopefully, I mean, this looks like it's all city staff. I mean, certainly it's in coordination with the Climate Action Plan and the Collaborative Board, and to the extent that there are working sector groups that are specific to each, whether, it's water. I mean, I know absolutely, I think that as what I didn't bring up when we were talking about transportation and multimodal access is, multimodal mobility is that I know that the transportation has a subgroup that's working on that as well. So there should be some resources there. So it's definitely a resource and an opportunity for city staff to lean into. And, for the most part, I think city staff is on all the working sector groups.
Why don't we just look down this list quickly? Current initiative, hire water conservation coordinator. Any questions on that one? Anyone?
What do they do?
What do they do?
That's the how.
That is the how.
That's
Well, we
what?
do have I don't know if I don't know if it's in here. I mean, the city has a goal, right, to reduce water consumption by 10% or what, right? From 2020 to 2030. And I don't know that to date we've been tracking it.
So this person will work on
Right.
that.
Well, I don't know. So we've already got that in the budget, a water conservation coordinator? I had that question too.
Yes.
Yes.
So this isn't a head count we could allocate to housing instead to work on.
Yeah, that was a position that was approved as part of the 26 budget. So we are moving forward to that. They were all but a couple were approved starting in the end of the second quarter, beginning of third quarter.
So this person is
What
approved.
does the coordinator do? Because I don't know.
The water conservation coordinator works with Julie and our water resource manager to evaluate water use, come up with implementing some of our water conservation measures. So it's just another staff member to help with those water conservation measures. Julie has a portion of her job that's dedicated to that, but not 100%. And this is one of the bigger city initiatives in the climate action. So it's throwing more resources at that particular effort.
Are we okay? Some of you thinking about that you don't need that job in the second half of the year and you're going to put it into housing?
Just, I think it's a luxury to worry about these things when we have all these other things facing our community. I've made that pretty clear. I rest my case. We can continue.
Okay. Landscaping code update. Everybody's good with that? Yes?
Yes, yep. Yeah, I mean, I think again, these all look great, right?
I mean, I don't see
They're-
any.
they're
Yeah, I mean,
initiatives,
we don't
they're
have to
initiatives
approve
that
them.
that are underway and and Brian, Counselor Swintek, I mean, it's about getting it integrated in business as usual with the goal being, right? If we save water, we're saving money. So, again, and so.
So does anybody have a question on any of the,
Yeah,
at this
I have
point?
questions on the future ones, because I don't know how what projects we have that we would actually implement the geothermal on
We're
this
looking at,
year.
we're looking at geothermal both at the base area and in the Public Works campus.
We had a presentation, didn't we?
No, so I am familiar with this, what's happening at the base. I'm not from, and I know that we have some test wells being put in, but test wells being put in and it's going to, those are going to support what? What projects are we going to support specifically?
Primarily the one at the base area is, I mean, you're familiar with that one, right?
Yeah.
That's primarily what this is.
Okay, okay, all right.
And then the implement energy efficiency improvements, I mean, that's part of the master plan, right? The decarbonization, electrification, and facilities master plan that I think we all looked at last fall.
Yes.
We okay? All right. Let's move on to the last one, which is community engagement and public outreach, which is around developing and implementing communications and engagement strategic plan. You can see the 3 current initiatives that are in place, all really geared towards strengthening our transparency, trust, and civic engagement.
May I just chime in? The monthly column, I'm on board, but this is a personal thing. If we commit to something like this, we all have to do it. And I will be there and I will do it on my turn. But if we're committing to this, that means all 7 of us are doing this and we're actually doing it. I just want to make that clear because otherwise we need to scratch it. Like I will not be a happy camper.
And Councilor Swintek, we talked about this because the last time we did this, there was an expectation for city council members to write the columns and it was difficult to get that from them. That is not the expectation this time.
Okay.
These will be written by staff. And there'll be a discussion about, from city council, whether somebody wants to put their name on it, whether all of city council wants to put their name on it, or if it comes from me. So it's being called the city council column just because that's what you're familiar with, but we're probably going to need to rebrand it and discuss sort of a process. So the expectation would not be that, you get January and,
Okay.
so.
But you are welcome to write one if you would like.
No, if we're committing to it, it's like, we got to do it. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Use that February. I actually love that. I would write one. I love the writing. I can't always commit to coffee with council though. Like, I think you all know that. I have another job. So I do my best, but that's
So the other one I'm
tough.
fine with. It's
Are
just
you?
like
Is
writing
that
a column.
better?
That's like a lot of brain power.
Okay.
That's where I'm coming from. Is I'm
Got it.
like, that's an ask. It's not just time, it's energy.
I'll write those and you do coffee with council.
Okay.
Okay.
Do we have is there a purpose statement for the column or is it just general information?
The purpose statement really is sort of public awareness and education about particular issues. And
They're not opinion columns.
No, it wasn't intended to be.
No,
opinion column.
no.
And we had this conversation with the newspaper.
Yeah, the publisher
you know-
and the editor of the paper both support this, so moving forward. Okay, so Tom, just give us what's going to happen next.
So we will amend these based on the changes that you've made. And we will bring this back to you based on the revised language for adoption through a resolution of your 26, 27 goals. We will also be using these for input into the 26 strategic plan and making sure that we include your goals and these initiatives within that plan, so it's reflected in that as well. So, and that's to be adopted end of second quarter of this year.
Okay? Yes.
As I look back through all, everything we have here in terms of our goals this year, there's a project that we don't even mention that impacts all our, programs, and that is the GTC. So is there a reason we would, for the Gondar Transit Center, that we would not have some defined goals that we want to achieve there? I don't know who to ask that to.
Amy?
Well, I would say since we have URAC, we have an actual committee around this work. I also wonder how it would fit in. Well, I guess it could. I mean, technically, URAC then reports out to SSRA, who then is a separate board than council. I don't see the need to have a goal specific to GTC with the work that URAC's doing.
It might be in conflict with what's going on with URAC already, right? With all that, I mean, there's so many parties negotiating in that, and there are deadlines that have to be met as it is, that are out of city council's hands.
Yeah. And I think actually, John, to your point though, I mean, I think the geothermal, like what Tom was saying, that's right now a major part of the GTC. And as Dave heard too, the consolidated shuttle. So I don't know, I'm comfortable leaving it off because the work is progressing.
I understand the work is progressing, and I just have this feeling of uncomfort because it is such a big project that's been going on and it's going to, ultimately, we're responsible for the build out of that, right? Of once it's, am I misunderstanding that aspect?
No, but we're like,
SSRA is responsible of that, which is us, yes.
Gates could better explain that, but it's not all on us. And the number one factor about the whole GTC, as far as I understand it, is like coming up with a feasibility for snow melt and geothermal. That's, we haven't been able to get an answer from the electric company. So geothermal is the hinge point right now.
Well, and back it up.
GTC going.
I thought it was a consolidated shuttle.
that's
It's-
a part too, yeah.
And we get a quarterly update,
Yeah, we have an SSRA meeting coming.
so.
So I guess maybe it comes back to the question of, is there anything that's happening in the GGC that this council could have impact upon? And the answer, and ultimately, or influence upon? That's, and if there's something that we can influence upon, then we should probably have some goals associated with that. If it's totally out of our hands, then there's no goals we can really set. But I feel like there's, so many departments that are impacted by the GTC that, the SST, the Public Works, fire department, all that, comes into play here. So I feel uneasy that we don't have something or say something there, and if everybody else is cool with it and feels that it's out of their control, but it comes down to, is there anything that we have control over?
Right now, I think we have it covered.
Any other thoughts on this one?
We got people,
Do most of you, besides John, do the rest of you feel okay with where we are on this one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Steve, I just wanted to ask one other question on the goals. Should there be anything about this, the parking, coming up and should we have anything in our goals for evaluating parking throughout the whole city, knowing that the ski area is gonna move to implement paid parking at the Meadows this year? Not saying we should, just asking the question if it should be something we should add in or let staff tell us when it's time to talk about it.
Yeah, I think I'd prefer to sort of hold on that, not necessarily have that in this document. We're evaluating that and we'll bring that forward when we feel like the time is right.
Okay.
Just one more process question. So will you bring it back before you bring it back as a resolution? Bring it back one more time for a conversation once you fill it in the,
Would you like to bring it back one more time?
Ah.
Is it first reading or is it just one?
just one
Just a
reading?
resolution, so it's,
Yeah, we should
One
probably
reading.
do two.
Yeah, I would recommend to bring it back, just maybe as a community report, have another discussion. Obviously, that also opens it up for if there's any public input. And then, because otherwise, if he brings it back as a resolution, if we want to do any edits, that's when it gets a little more complicated.
All right, that's fine. And the time frame for that, Tom, is probably,
I don't know, probably March. I mean, it's pretty quick.
okay,
turnaround, so.
yeah, okay, perfect. All right, do we need to take a quick break before we jump into the IGA? What?
I'm not done.
Oh.
No, and I'm not trying to, kill it. I just want to turn this way to Tom and say, do you feel comfortable with the GTC and that we don't have any additional goals set there? So that, yeah.
I mean, I feel comfortable because we're going to be working on it through the URA. It's an ongoing project. So I'd feel comfortable either way, quite honestly. So if you had a goal, I'd feel comfortable. And if you didn't,
It's not going to change anything.
it's not going to change anything we're doing.
Then, yeah, okay. That's why I wanted to understand.
Okay. Do you want to take a break?
Yes.
Let's take a quick 10-minute break and we'll go through the IGA. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to, because I forgot to do this and ask for public comment at our goals. So is there anybody in the audience? Or if there's anybody online, please raise your hand if you'd like to make a public comment regarding the discussion on city council goals. Seeing nobody in the room and no one online, we'll close public comment and move to our second work session topic, which is the review of the Yampa Valley Housing Authority intergovernmental agreement. How would you like to start this one, Tom?
Well, just a reminder to City Council that this came out of a joint meeting with the county commissioners back in December when there was just a discussion of reviewing sort of IGAs with any of our partners, the first one being the Housing Authority. Council had made some recommendations for changes to the Housing Authority IGA, and the county commissioners said probably the best step would be for council to sort of decide on what amendments they would like to pursue, come up with a list, and then have President Muntean and Commissioner Salinas sit down and talk about which ones they think would be reasonable. I think the county also has some changes that they would like to make. So the intent for tonight is to hear each one of you, I think, kind of submitted some possible changes to the amendments or to the IGA. And I think it's just a matter of discussing those to see which ones you agree upon. And then Kathy Meyer and Jason Peasley are here from the Housing Authority to answer any questions, or and I believe they have some public comment as well. So that's really the intent.
Okay, and we did get on the attachments here, we got an attachment from Councilor Barnes and Councilor Dixon, right? So why don't we start with one of you? Would you like to start?
Yeah, do you have a question? Go first?
Yeah, can I ask just like a basic question? What is the purpose and scope of an IGA? Just so I can help frame this conversation.
That is not an answerable question.
Right.
An IGA is an agreement between two government agencies or entities, and other than that, they can be anything or do anything, really.
So it could be as prescriptive as you wanted it to be, or as vague as you wanted it to be.
Yes, generally speaking, this particular IGA is subject to the statutory requirements that the state legislature established. And the reason those are important is because the city can really do anything it wants in an IGA, but the county is a little bit more limited. And so because the county is the counterparty, we do have to follow the statute. That being said, I think everything that has been suggested as a change is something that you could do if the county agreed.
And can you also speak to like just what's appropriate in an IGA versus in the bylaws?
Well, you would want to put anything that you and the county wanted to control in the IGA, and you would want to put things that you wanted the board to control in the bylaw. And actually, you wouldn't put them in the bylaws. The board would do that.
Right. We'd get agreement from the board, or potentially, right? But so I guess so to your point would be if there's anything that we feel strongly about, then that would need to be something that we would recommend to the county.
Sure. I mean, you know, I think that there is a sort of difference between the organizing document for a body and its bylaws. But in this particular case, I think really the critical fact is that the city and county boards control the IGA and not the bylaws. And so that should inform your decisions as to what goes where.
Because I always think about bylaws being more, I mean, again, operational.
Yes, I think that is typically the case.
You could have operational stuff in an IGA if you wanted.
Sure, if you felt that it was important enough that you wanted to tell the Housing Authority board that they had to operate in a certain way, even if it was something that ordinarily would be a board decision, you could put it in the IGA.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a key difference that I researched on this was the IGA is the master contract that binds the governments together. The bylaws are the internal operational rules for the people working within that agreement, which is similar,
right,
kind of thing, what you guys are all saying. Okay, good question, Brian. Thank you.
Sorry to derail us. Go ahead.
Oh,
That was,
Before you start, what what document are you reading? You said you submitted, both.
Mine is, I actually have notes. I don't know what number it is. Am I number 3 or 4?
Number 4,
Attachment 4.
Attachment
2.32, I believe it is.
Okay, so maybe I don't want to belabor the point. I think some of them I'm going to skip past because I actually am lukewarm to them. My personal opinion, actually working with IGAs, am I taking this hat off and putting my other hat on? In state government, it is very much high level. You don't want to do an IGA that will not stand really the test of time, that several years. You don't want to be coming back and updating an IGA based on what is happening today. So I would caution us from going too much into the weeds and making it too operational. So with that, I did pull a couple other IGAs. I like to do that stuff. So I looked at Chaffey County and Aspen Pitkin. Please know, I do recognize that all housing authorities are set up differently. So by no means am I saying we must use one or the other. I just wanted to get a sense of how other IGAs are being developed. So the first one is clarify and strengthen governance and oversight expectations. I would make the recommendation that we actually add to the IGA, maybe in section 4.6, duties and powers, adopting annually a strategic plan and community guidelines. So that would put essentially asking the housing authority to update both council and commissioners on their annual strategic plan and community guidelines. I think that adds for what we're hearing for possible increased transparency. And I think as counselors, we should have visibility to that.
And are you okay if we ask?
Sure, yeah.
I'm just going to, I believe that, the Housing Authority already does a strategic plan, right? And it's on your website.
Yes, they do. What this is saying is that we're telling the housing authority that they then present it to council and commission, and not us going and looking for it on the website.
For our approval or just for information only?
Just for updates, yep. And
Although I get a little hung up on the second bullet, an annual work plan and budget aligned with city and county housing priorities.
where's that one?
Oh, sorry, it's under recommendation, update the IGA to clearly require.
Yep, the housing. So for this number 1, at this point, I would only recommend the annual strategic plan update to council and commissioners and community guidelines. And the budget I put in a different section.
Councilor Dixon, when you say community guidelines, what are you referencing?
That, I think actually goes into, let me pull that one. That really is around having community engagement where other IGAs call out their housing authorities, actually having a plan to engage with their community. And I think you all do that. Yeah. So like, I'm not asking the housing authorities to actually do probably anything different. It's just codifying it in the bylaws that we then are presented to us. So yeah, so I'm hoping I'm not actually saying more work for the housing authority. I think they're doing this stuff. It's just putting it in our bylaws so we can see that. And not just us, future councils too. So my only recommendation would be the adopting annual strategic plan and community guidelines for that first one.
Wait, I thought you were just going with the third bullet, the formal presentation.
Wait, are you working off a different version? Because I'm not seeing any word guidelines in.
Yeah.
No, there is no community guidelines in number 1.
You get an old.
No, that's my, sorry, scrap that, might be down lower. Okay, so take that out. So I think we'll stick with then just the strategic plan and take out the community guidelines.
Wait, but I'm not looking at number one, clarify and strengthen governance and oversight expectations, right?
Yes.
And then recommendation is to update the IGA to clearly require 3 bullets. And you're recommending only bullet 1 and bullet 3,
Yes.
not bullet 2.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah, thanks, Brian.
sorry, continue.
No, please, thanks. For number 2, executive director accountability, that's, I want to leave to the bylaws. So I'm actually pulling that.
Okay, good. So this one,
Number 2, yeah.
too, we think, that's what I was going to ask.
I'm gonna
And I
pull-
think it's a little bit different in terms of Pitkin because in Pitkin, the ED reports to the city manager. So I don't, yeah.
Yeah.
So I agree that does not belong in the IGA.
Mm-mm. Yeah, so right now, just number 1, and then moving to number 3, the financial transparency controls and audit requirements. Really just honing in on, which again, I believe they do, having in the bylaws that adopting an annual audit to be presented to each member jurisdiction.
And again, I'll just clarify with the Housing Authority, that's on your website already.
Yeah, that's correct. And we actually also deliver it to the city. It's usually sent to the city manager and the finance director because we have some outstanding loans with the city and things like that.
Yep. Again, I think we should codify it in the IGA that this is something that will be produced to city council and county commissioners. And I'm assuming it's in, yeah. So I think it's a matter of codifying it.
We are required to annually submit to the city an annual report. So included in that annual report could easily be strategic plan and our audit. But we are required under the current IGA to do an annual.
Yes, yeah. I do understand that. My ask is that it's actually being presented to city council. So unless I go to the website, I have not seen it. There is a difference between an annual report and audited financial reports. And so the annual report is great. That's not what I'm asking for here.
Right, and it's on there, but just to be clear,
I know that. I know. I'm sorry. I get all of this stuff is out there. I'm asking it should be codified in the IGA.
Okay. And you would like it to be presented to council and commissioners for Q&A? basically.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. So that, I would ask that we codify it in the IGA and not just say you can go look on the website for it.
Oh, no, and I guess I'm just simply making the point that it's out there and it's always been incumbent upon us. I mean, they come anytime we ask them, right? So if we feel like we need to put it in the IGA, I mean, I guess I don't hesitate. I mean, I'm not going to argue against that, but this is a two-way street, right? From the perspective of, I think they've been pretty clear about, YVHA has been pretty clear about coming in and certainly we can always, as a council, ask them to come in.
Wait, sorry, may I take a step back? This feels like a weird debate or defensive vibe I'm getting, and I don't understand why. I thought we were just here to try to improve the working relationship and document the IGA. Why am I getting sense like somebody needs to defend something?
I'll take that on because I think there's a lot of this information is out there, right? And I think that there's a lot of folks that don't think this information is out there and that the Housing Authority is not being transparent and they're not being accountable. And I don't want that to come across this way, right? I mean, I absolutely appreciate what Councillor Dixon's doing in terms of if we want to codify this in terms of the IGA, but it's not because the Housing Authority is not doing their job today, right? They are doing audits. They have strong systems in place. So that's my point as we go through this, making it very clear that this is already being done. So I will continue to do that as we go through this because there's a lot that's being asked for that's already being done. So if, again, I understand where Counselor Dixon's coming from in terms of if we want to make sure that it's more public and more transparent, that's that much better.
Yeah, I agree with Amy on that. And just that if you go to the website and you look at the financials, I mean, I'm used to looking at some financials. They're very, very hard to understand with the intergovernmental debits and credits and money flowing in different accounts. It's very hard for a layperson to make heads or tails of it. So I think a presentation to council where somebody could ask questions would be valuable.
Yeah, so thanks, Brian. So I want to be really clear. This is not an attack on the housing authority. This is not at all saying they're not doing things right. I know you're doing this stuff. I've already said that. I just want, because we've heard people say they want more transparency, and to say, go to the website and look is no longer adequate for people. And it's not inappropriate to have this in an IGA. It's not. Like, I looked and the other IGAs have this. So this is standard for nonprofits. Annual audited financials, like standard.
Yeah, no.
So that's all, like, I just want to, I know to Brian's point, that's all I'm just trying to help. We haven't updated this since 2003. That's all I'm trying to do. And this is our one opportunity, because hopefully we don't have to update it for another however many years.
And that would be the goal, right? I mean, as I do think we need to keep it at a very high level and not be too prescriptive.
I just think we need to understand that you're both approaching this from two different perspectives. Your perspective is you want to make sure that the community understands that these things are already available. And it's not that the housing authority isn't doing them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you're saying you just like it to be a more formalized approach so that council can ask questions and dig into it as almost an intentional thing versus having to go and look for it and maybe not get the answers you're looking for because you can't have a Q&A on it.
I would just modify that by saying, again, we are city council and we can always bring the housing authority in.
Yes.
So, but if we want to codify that it has to happen annually, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Okay, so the next one, so the number 4, I'm going to skip because I'm lukewarm on that. So unless someone else wants to bring that up. And sorry, Brian, number 5, or someone asked Tom about the community engagement. And so it's actually with number 5. So again, it sounds like the housing authority already does all of this. So is it worth putting in an IGA? Again, this one I could take or leave, so I'm not going to say much more about that one. I am going to speak to number 6, though. Conflict of interest and ethics provisions. I think that's out completely. I think that's one that's not even identified in our current IGA, if I remember correctly. And so we absolutely need a section in there for conflict of interest.
And again, I don't think that that's going to be a problem,
Annual
right?
Conflict of interest disclosure.
On an annual basis and part of the onboarding.
Yes. No, as part of the first meeting in January, usually it's if not, it's at the beginning of the year. And every member of the board has to sign and disclose any conflicts.
Perfect. I mean, I know that, okay? I know that.
You do.
I know that. And so, but it should, if you look at the other IGAs, well, it's called out, like, these are the expectations. So everyone knows, like, of course you all do that. Like, that's standard operating, but it should be in an IGA.
So I wouldn't apologize. We understand. All you're doing is you're putting in writing what we're already doing, just because, staff changes over the years. And as you said, it hasn't been updated since 2003. So it's good. Let's highlight those things that we are already doing and make sure we expect these going forward.
Agree. And again, I'm just going to come at it and say, we all in this room know that. It just needs to be very clear to our community that again, the housing authority has these practices in place.
And that's for the board and the director of leadership.
Just make sure the paper.
Right.
conflict of interest.
I'm only talking about the board. I'm only talking about, and then my last one is number 8, technical. There's a lot of cleanup that needs to happen. It references Habitat for Humanity. I'm not sure if we still have. It references Ralph. I think that was absorbed by the Housing Authority. So there just needs to be cleanup. Okay, so that.
You skipped over 7. You skipped
Did I skip 7? What was 7?
7 was term limits and
Oh, I'm okay with that. Yeah. Yeah, that can stay with bylaws. Actually, the term limits, I think we're probably going to talk about with.
Although I'll go back to your number 4, and that was a question that I had, Dan, is whether or not, I mean, whether or not what's talked about contemplates kind of the SDR funds. What's already in there in terms of that language in the IGA.
I don't think there's any doubt that SDR funds are subject to council appropriation. Now, that may not be spelled out in the IGA, and I suppose you could add that if you wanted to. But I don't believe that has ever been an issue.
Yeah, I decided not, but the reason why I was like, I'm going to pull back on that because I thought about the STR for sure. And I was thinking, is there a way, should we be incorporating this? But then I thought back to my own advice, Amy, this should last. And so if the STR funds go away, so that's why I was like, meh, on that one. One last comment is that my expectation is that we would have a red line version, which I'm not sure if Dan would do that, being the lawyer. I'm not sure who. Sorry, I don't want to point at you, Dan, but someone does that. It probably goes to the county commissioners. We need to have a red line version. And then I would expect we send it to the Housing Authority as well. And so then you all can see the red line version as well and provide input if you're seeing things that, should not be pulled out. So.
I share one thought.
Yeah.
On number 5, the community engagement, I just think including some kind of language highlighting what you guys do of community informed decision making. I feel like that would be nice if we had somehow it was written in the IGA. That might be a very small detail, but I feel like that would be nice if it was in there. I don't feel strongly about it, but that's all. This is such an awkward meeting.
I know. I don't know if this went like.
No, it's not.
Like go home. Like
And I say, I apologize. I'm not trying to make it awkward. I just got some feedback from people. And again, I know everybody in this room understands what's being done, but I don't think that is being communicated to the public. And so that's why I wanted to make sure that everybody understands that like you say, what we're talking about is these are actions that are already taking place, but we want them in writing. It's good governance.
All right. Thank you, Amy. Appreciate the time you put into that.
Thank you.
So you skipped over a number of things. And so can we clarify what exactly you are proposing?
Yeah, so I would be proposing that number 1, thanks, John, that we actually codify the strategic plan update to city council and county commissioners. They already do it. Other IGAs codify it. Let's codify it. And so it's something that we will always get on an annual basis. There is no harm, no foul to do that. Number 3, financial transparency controls and audit requirements. The annual audit, I get it's already being done. Can we please codify it in an IGA that it is delivered to city council and county commissioners? Again, they're already doing it. Let's just have it delivered to city council and county commissioners. Number 6, conflicts of interest and ethics provisions. I am not saying I'm recommending this because I have concerns at all. I am saying this from a good governance IGA perspective. That should be in there. That's it. That is the only reason why. So that, and then technical number 8, we need to do a cleanup, and I don't know who does that, but there is this really outdated language in here. We need to update it to reflect that we revised it in 2026 and just small technical stuff.
And we agree that the cleanup is really more of a legal matter of going through it with a fine tooth comb and getting rid of this stuff versus us. I don't think we need to get into that at all, like Habitat for Humanity and that other stuff, because that's just going to go by the wayside. So I guess what I would do is, given what Amy has said, which is basically to codify a number of different things, and then Brian's comment around community outreach or engagement, what other things do we feel need to be addressed? And I know it came up around term limits, et cetera. So who's got some specifics that they'd like addressed?
I'll bring up one. I mean, I think we talked about alternate and the fact that we needed to clarify that language. And I think there was some language in the Chafee that talks about, the fact that if when we speak about city and the council representatives, that if the regular member can't be there, that the alternate has the same powers. Yeah, something like
Yes.
that.
Same, and can vote.
Yep.
Yes.
I know that
Well,
language.
then wouldn't the alternate need to be informed in executive director meetings?
I'm sorry.
Wouldn't then the alternate be needed to be part of the executive meetings?
Executive
So that they would be
sessions?
Informed,
Or the,
executive board meetings.
Only when the regular member is not there. I mean, I think that's what I think Chafee and Pitt can say.
I mean, it'd be hard to know what to vote on if you weren't privy to the information.
You'd have to speak with the regular member to get updated.
which is what we put in place.
So to clarify, executive sessions, the alternates are not in the executive sessions. Is that correct?
That is correct at this point. Okay, what else? What other changes does anyone recommend?
So the other big change that I had just brought past, which is actually presented by Bill Pass, and having a subcommittee for executive compensation, leadership, deputy director positions, as well as approving YVHA's benefit package and for all senior staff and all staff. This housing authority was made in 2003 with very limited or no funding. I think now we have, what is it, a budget from the mill levy is around 2.1?
1.8,
1.8,
the mill levy, just the mill levy.
just the mill levy. So, I mean, operationally, they've grown to be a lot stronger. I think the board, and I was mistaken when we were talking about bringing on board members and having them have the ability to remove the executive director or to make changes or approve compensation, that really isn't what those people are signing up for. They're signing up to be a working board and to do the good work of the housing authority. So who gets to regulate the power of the housing authority? It has to be city council and county commissioners versus the board. Unless you think those people are going to be able to make tough decisions if they need to be made. So I think that subcommittee could be a really good way to address those problems. And as it explains, the ex officio board members that are already on, one from the county, one from the city, and then the board president to be able to make those decisions in a majority, with the caveat that in order for the city council ex officio, they would have to get a majority of the council vote. And when it comes out, it's for a public display, but also allows the city and county. Right now, there's no ability to really regulate from the city and the county's perspective what the housing authority does. They got a $700,000 raise right in the last mill levy adjustment in 2024. And they absorbed all that. Is that right?
What are you referring to?
The mill levy reevaluation in 2024, the amount of additional funds that came in,
Correct. There was an increase in our,
almost 700,000, right? 680?
somewhere in that.
This is a 63% operational increase in mill levy. So, I mean, it's an entity that's grown and it's taxpayer dollars. And I think there should be more oversight from the county and the city council perspective.
So what is the ask?
The ask is to create a subcommittee for executive director leadership, deputy director leadership, compensation, benefit packages, and the ability to remove or replace.
It's described in attachment 3 under one of the first paragraphs that says from bill pass, and it basically says a key person oversight and compensation committee that's made up of the Housing Authority Board President and the 2 ex officio board members that would have decisions on compensation packages for, I guess, key persons, which is defined as executive director, deputy executive director, and whoever else you decide. So that's essentially what the proposal is.
Yeah, and I would say that one of the things you're asking is really around who's accountable. And in most nonprofit boards, the board is in charge of all those things. Compensation, performance reviews, all of that, strategic direction, all of that is up to the board. And who is the board accountable to? Well, outside of really the financial audits and everything to make sure that things are being done correctly, the board is in charge. The difference here is that we have another layer that's added on, and that's the county and the city around the IGA. And the question is, where does accountability switch off from one to the other? We know now that the accountability that we have is really around the selection of board members between the county and the city. That's what we do. We interview and we select board members. Now, you could argue we have some influence beyond that, and I wouldn't disagree with that, but that is our prime accountability. So what Councilor Barnes is talking about is a major shift in that level of accountability.
I think the problem with that accountability is that you're picking board members based on their expertise in the field for helping the housing authority and not necessarily in a governance perspective. And I think the difference between this nonprofit is that they have a floating mill levy of taxpayer dollars that goes toward it. So I think there should be more accountability.
So may I chime in? I want to interrupt you. I'm going to respectfully disagree with all of that. We should not have a separate committee. This is housing, which I did do a lot of homework on this. The Housing Authority is regulated by state statute as well, which you'll see the references actually in here. But if we're upset about who is on that board, that is our fault. 100%. In the bylaws, it actually talks about the appointments committee. Oh, guess who that is? That's us. That's city council and county commissioners. So that's on us. So we need to clean our house before we get upset with the housing authority and who's on the board. And if that's something we want to take on and have a better process as an appointments committee, great. But it's already in here and it's on us.
And, right, I mean, and kind of what we just went through in terms of adding in the layer of reporting out to council more frequently, the annual report, the strategic plan. I mean, that's where we provide input. So, I mean, I concur with Councilor Dixon's role that I don't support another committee overseeing compensation, et cetera.
I just don't understand the why. Almost in a way, you're creating a structure because you're saying the board is dysfunctional and we need an additional layer. That's how I'm reading your why. Am I misinterpreting that?
I think so. I think all I'm saying is that the people that are appointed to those boards are not there for the governance perspective as much as they are to help for the affordable housing issues. And therefore, they may have their own internal struggles and conflicts of looking at it from a taxpayer perspective. And that's why I suggest that you're taking that piece of the governance away from the board and putting it in the hands of the people that form the IGA. That's all. I'm not trying to make it more difficult than that, but I think there's could be a big internal, if you sit around the table, I've only been in one meeting, but there's not a lot of people there that look like they're there for the governance. They want to do the good work of the housing authority with the expertise that they bring to the table. And I think that can be hard if you have to make a hard decision.
Well, I also think that in most boards that I've been associated with, there's an executive committee on the board, which is the chair of the board or the president of the board and the vice president of the board and maybe a finance person on the board and possibly a secretary on the board. Usually these people are the ones who are steeped in the knowledge of what goes on. They've been around a while. They aren't brand new. They're experts in their competence around whatever occupation they come from and everything else. So I think the executive committee in most boards makes recommendations to the full board, and those are taken very seriously, I think, by most boards. So I think the key to a working board, as you say, Dave, is that you got some people doing that, but I think the key is that you have to have strong executive committee on a board. That's what makes the difference, in my view.
So where in the IGA, what section in the IGA is it written about who is responsible for the oversight of the YVHA? I see Bill Pass's recommendation, but and that it's a board, but where is it written so I can review that? I didn't see that section. What do you mean?
What's your question?
You don't think it's currently in there, Councilor Augusta? I think that's what Councilor Barnes is suggesting, that it would be put in the IGA, but it's not currently in there.
Well, Bill Pass is
It was
also
just his
recommending.
idea. I didn't want to take credit for it. It was just his idea. I didn't want to take credit for it.
So it's, basically what I'm hearing is there's two approaches about who does the oversight, but where ultimately it sounds like it's missing from the IGA today. Is that?
I don't know if it's missing necessarily.
What section?
Steve is just recommending that we add an additional committee to handle
Yeah.
these things. That's all. And he's saying he thinks it's necessary, and we're having a discussion whether it is necessary or not.
Yeah.
To be clear, the additional committee already exists. I mean, they're already sitting in the room. They're already knowledgeable. It's not different members.
Counselor Gosta, do you have a question?
My question is, in the IGA, can someone point me to the section in the IGA that talks about the hiring and firing of the executive director?
That's
Report
not
three.
the role of, I mean,
Wait,
I mean,
was going to chime in.
oh, go ahead.
There is general authority in 4.6.2 D.
What section again?
4.6.2 D, don't get too excited. It just says the board has the power to employ agents and employees.
And I would also, John, reference 4.1 governance. And it's very short, it's one sentence, but the most important part of the sentence says vested by CRS section 29-1-204.5, because that's the state statute that actually lists all of these areas.
And 4.3 also has info on it.
Well,
These are typically in the bylaws around, in the bylaws, you have things around strategic direction, the executive director oversight and performance and reviews and all those types of things. These are typically in the bylaws, which they are in your bylaws of the housing authority. right now.
Yeah.
All right.
I think
Other
one
advi-
thing
Oh.
that might clear it up too is that, there's all kinds of subcommittees within the housing authority, right? There's multiple different things and the executive director works closely with all those people. Makes it family oriented and a lot less governance orientated. And I think that becomes a problem for the board to be able to make a tough decision. And I'm just saying that from a taxpayer's perspective, I don't think we have the ability to claw back if we need to right now on the housing authority.
Yeah.
And it's a much different housing authority than it was in 2003.
Okay, now that I'm understanding this a little better, who are you suggesting should be on that subcommittee or that?
Same people that are on, the one from the ex officios from the city council and the commissioners and the board president.
While we let this simmer, can I add a tangential but related idea? There is no lack of expertise on that board. Everybody is well qualified to be in the room. I personally, and I know that boards can be as large as 17, but I do think that having a slightly smaller board could help give more effective direction to the staff at the housing authority. It's very hard to wrangle a large group like that. It is very intimidating to raise your voice. It's just, there is a sweet spot. And if I'm reading between the lines of the current IGA, if I was back then, I kind of feel like they were unsure how big it should be, which is why they created a range. I just feel like maybe part of what we've learned is this large of a board that is 15 members may just be difficult. And once again, I'm not saying no one deserves to be there. Like, that room is filled with expertise. It just may be more effective to have a smaller number of individuals. And I would be curious what the rest of council would think.
I think as Counselor Dixon said, I mean, that's on us again, right? I mean, city council and county commissioners appoint the board. So if we think it needs to be smaller, or if we don't think, I mean, then we simply, like we did, don't fill certain spots, or to the extent that it's incumbent upon us to be nominating people and selecting people that do understand the role and that it's governance, and that as a board, you are responsible for how the board functions. So to me, it's on, we have this power already.
I totally hear you. However, I believe human nature naturally thinks like you have qualified applicants, more people in the room is beneficial. It is almost like counterintuitive. Having this natural cap would help reel in the natural human tendency to want to fill the room with qualified individuals. That's the thing. I think we've filled it because we have so many great applicants. It's like, well, more minds on this problem would be better. But if you look at the other two that Amy provided, I think they have 5 and 9. So I totally understand it is in our control, but there is a disconnect between like the effectiveness of reality and human nature.
Can I just add one more point and then I'll let it rest? I mean, you guys will make the decision either way. But are you willing to fire 6 of the board members because they don't make a decision that you wanted them to make? Because that's a really tough ask of city council and the county commissioners to agree, I'm firing 6 board members because of an egregious mistake made by somebody else at the institution or then at the authority. That becomes an almost never gonna happen situation.
Agreed.
So we formed it. It's with taxpayer dollars. I believe we owe the taxpayer the ability to have control over the leadership of the housing authority.
My counter to that, because I can see both sides, but as I'm reading through this a little bit more, the board controls the money. And so you're just pulling out one aspect, which is staffing. But ultimately, as everyone knows, money controls everything, but the board controls all the money. And so are we looking for oversight then on how we distribute funds? No, that's why we have the board. So I'm kind of moving, more solidly in the line of, we have a board, it manages that business and provides direction. That direction includes money flow and staffing.
I think the other thing about some of this is when we talk about how big a board should be and whatnot, I agree that it can get out of hand. And most boards are odd number boards, 5, 7, 9 type of thing. I think part of the housing authority challenge is probably thinking about the working side of the board. And when you were ramping up for Brown Ranch, thinking it would happen, that may have influenced the size of that board on the upside. So I think there's a lot that needs to be done around rethinking about the board and how many board members you need and what their roles and responsibilities are. But for us to decide that just without dialoguing with the housing authority is probably a little short-sighted. I think we need to understand the rationale for having the number of board members before we say automatically that, well, we need to reduce this by 2 or 3 people. Because, yeah, it's our role, but we need to make it based on sound decision-making. So I think overall that a smaller board is a nimbler board is a better board. But I also want to hear from the housing authority about why we need this size board or that size board. I think term limits and that type of stuff is a different story. I think it's healthy to bring new perspectives on, and I don't think it's good to have just unending, being like you're in the Senate or something in Washington. I don't think that's a healthy thing. So
We have control over that too. I mean, if we want to change the mix of the board,
Well, what I'm saying is it's a lot easier for me to get behind a term limit thing because that's not so much associated with specifics of the board as is maybe the makeup of the board or the number of board members.
yeah.
I think there should be term limits personally. I just feel that is the appropriate thing to do, but.
And the commissioners agree with that as well.
What term?
Yeah.
Yeah,
They actually brought it up.
yeah.
Okay, so where are we here?
You guys are having a nice discussion. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
I kind of would like, we have 2
Yes.
guests up here. Could we include them in this work session? Because this is not a public hearing. This is a work session.
Yeah. Sure.
Do you guys have any input that you would like to have in any of these discussions that we've been, kind of give us some enlighten with? Because more than 2 or 3 sentences would be really appreciated right now.
All right, I'd like to start since I was on the drafting committee, if you will, 20 years ago. It took us 2 years of very thoughtful writing that involved the city, both the city attorney and the city manager, county representation, and at the time, the Ralph executive director. We looked to, and we were the second multi-jurisdictional housing authority in the state of Colorado. And we looked to and adopted the Colorado revised statutes that govern us and I looked at those statutes recently, and they're still very much aligned with what we do today and limit what we can and can't do. We were advised at the time that we should take those statutes and we could be more restrictive, not less restrictive. Why the name? We had a vision of being a housing authority for the Valley, and that's why the size was from 7 to 15 members. We did reach out to other municipalities who chose not to join for various reasons. So we plowed ahead, and we have looked, and we have had everything from 7 board members, which is the minimum. And we actually went through a time when we actually did not let someone resign from the board because we needed to hit that 7 number. We currently have 13 board members, including the ex officio board members. We had 18 people apply last time. And as Councilor Dixon acknowledged, and that you as the appointing committee chose to nominate and appoint 14 board members at the time. Could we look at downsizing the board? I think it would be, and I think it would be prudent to look at it at the end of next year and have a plan. And I do want to say one thing that's very important to me. When you created the Housing Authority 20 years ago, you created a political subdivision of the state of Colorado. We are a governmental entity, and we take our fiduciary responsibility very seriously. I just want to thank you for letting me have a few words, and I would like our executive director to opine on anything I've missed. So thank you very much, everybody.
So I have a lot of thoughts. I'm not sure which ones I want to say. I think fundamentally what we're talking about here is how do we continue as the organization, the Housing Authority, to deliver on our mission? You guys created us with this specific purpose, and here we are continuing to try to do that mission. A lot of that comes down to coordination amongst all of us, which I think the IGA is an appropriate place for that to exist. But I think, as Kathy mentioned, like, we are our own organization. You created us, and we are not a child. We are our own organization now. You have the right to change our board members, which is correct. But the board runs the organization. They hire and fire the executive director. The executive director is responsible for hiring the rest of the staff. That is a functioning organization. That is how your current city works, how almost every organization with a board or a council or county commissioners works. I'm a little concerned that what we're talking about is sort of coded conversations about a specific topic that you may or may not want to talk about in open session. And so realistically, this conversation needs to be focused on how are we as a community, as three different community organizations, the city, the county, and the Housing Authority, working to deliver housing solutions for people. And we have a huge problem in front of us, and it's getting bigger by the day. And so while we're spending a lot of time talking about this, we are not spending time delivering housing solutions. And so that's probably the biggest thing that keeps me up at night about all of this, is the amount of time that we're spending on this is taking away capacity for delivering housing. And I know it's important to have these conversations. I want us to get back to a place where we are all functioning and working well together. And so that will allow us to create housing solutions in the future. But at the moment, we have a huge task in front of us, and the community members that are trying to get into the Cottonwoods, by the way, the lottery is opening in 2 weeks. Those folks are hyper focused on finding housing solutions, finding their next place to live. And we need to be filling that pipeline so the next group of folks can be living in there. That's what I would love to be focused on. Yeah, that's all I have.
And we will be back in a week to deliver our annual report, and we have 15 minutes for questions in addition to our presentation. So you will see our shiny faces again.
No, I appreciate both of you guys coming up here and giving your 2 cents. That's why you're at that table. And I think that, and I appreciate what you're saying, Jason, as far as we have a big problem in the community. We do want to focus on that. I think what we're stopping to look at is the past 12 months and governance, right? And so governance is something that, even though, we could sit there and kind of put our head in the sand and say it's governing okay. We're good at let's provide housing. Let's provide housing. But there's a faction of our community that wants to make sure that we, as governing the city, is also overseeing the governance of what we're responsible for, and that's the appointments of those boards. and moving forward. We both need to go through this exercise. It's good to clean up and go through this right now. But with that, with the last 12 months, 18 months, and the trust issue that keeps coming up in different areas, I think it's gone by that because I think there's a lot more trust now. I don't know for sure if it's been rectified. I think we're just haven't been talking about it. But we have to, at a city level, this is our only opportunity to bring it up. And so with the health of, Amy and Dave and the new ears with Mr. Augusta being here to kind of ask these other questions about it, this is a healthy governance work session. And so, yeah, I want to get back to providing housing for our community. And one of the things that we haven't done successfully in this 4 years, the last 4 years, working with the Housing Authority, is truly a collaboration between us as partners in this IGA who created you. And to me, I really feel like that partnership, it's been so adversarial, whether it's the lack of trust by our community, whether it's the Brown Ranch big master plan that got voted down, the division that this has caused us. I know that the donors never intended that to divide this community, but to provide for this community. How do we move forward with this? And so we're given this chance right now to kind of look through this IGA. And I think that we have some good points. Definitely the cleaning up makes some sense. I personally have gone through it, and there's not a lot that I would make drastic changes to. But I think that we as a city council need to stop and ask these questions. Is this where we're healthy right now? And that's why we have to have this conversation about executive director, about who hires and fires that person, about what happens, because there's been some animosity and some concern in the community. And I would be less remiss as a city councilman if I didn't find the opportunity to actually ask these questions in an open forum, in a public forum like we are. So I appreciate you guys being here. As hard as this might be, I don't know if we're going to get to a resolve of what we come out of this IGA. It's been another hour since we've been going through this. So I just appreciate us all having this opportunity. And I think our community needed to know that it's important enough for us to actually be here together and ask these questions. So I don't really have a point. I just think it's important for us to realize we're looking at this IGA tooth comb. It doesn't look that bad. Amy digs deep in these things, and she's bringing her expertise, and I really appreciate that. And these are things that are very just good governance, and that's what we're here to do, good governance. So I don't know where we go from here as far as making any changes to this IGA, but we're at a work session, and we continue to have this open dialogue.
Well, maybe what we should do here is kind of summarize where we are on this IGA, because Dave has brought up something around, I guess, from Mr. Pass about a subcommittee or whatnot. And yes.
I would recommend, because we have a list of things from Councilor Dixon. We've got something from Councilor Gary and now Barnes. I think, Councilor Barnes, I don't know if you have other suggestions, but I would say just let's get the list and then you can go through it and sort of give thumbs up.
Yeah, that's
And
what
then
I was
what we
gonna
would
do.
do is then turn that into a red line document, working with Dan, so that that's something that you can discuss with Commissioner Salinas at a future date.
Now, before we do that, should we open it up to public comment?
Well, do you want to get through the list? Because I don't, unless you've exhausted the list.
I just have one more point, and that's
Okay.
the eminent domain in there. Just figuring that the housing authority shouldn't have the possibility of doing eminent domain without bringing it to the full council and or county commissioners, depending on where that lies. As I read the IGA now, they could do an eminent domain with the one vote of the ex officio city council or Rock County commissioner, depending on where the eminent domain was listed. I know it's generally for smaller parcels, smaller things, but I think, seeing as we're growing out of our boots, I think that eminent domain clause can be taken out.
Taken out?
Taken out of the IGA.
Well, I mean, the one thing that when I first read on this thing 4 years ago and I was on the board was that one ex officio can kill a whole deal. can kill the annexation or any, I mean, this is the one control that the ex officio has, whether it's in the city or the county. And so I like,
Also make the deal though.
but I like having that control because I know that if Steve is on the board as the ex officio,
Yep.
he's not going to be speaking one of 7. He's going to be speaking the majority of the 7. So there's a lot of confidence that I have keeping that in there. I'm not sold on that being taken.
There is no public comment on it though. On an eminent domain with, under those circumstances.
Understood. I'm not fully sold on that, but I see where you're coming from.
Hold on, we are a public entity. Like any action like that would require a public vote of the housing authority.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I was
Wouldn't
going
come
to ask.
before city council
Public,
for public comment, right?
The hearing probably wouldn't come to us directly, but the discussion that we could have as the 7 of us would probably want to have some input to give to the one councilman that's going to be.
That would,
Again, just my suggestion.
yeah, no, that would be, that is the way we do business.
It is the way we do business.
Yes. It would come to council and with the consensus of council would be how the ex officio proceeded. So
I would note that it's outlined in the state statute that this is within their authority.
is there any, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, the only one other heard that I didn't get direction was with what, if you wanted to suggest term limits.
And what does that look like? I think commissioners said 3 years, and I think the recommendation, 3 terms, sorry,
I think they said
Three,
3
sir.
terms.
And then one term off and then they could come back.
back. And I think your recommendation or Bill's recommendation was something different,
Mine was just 3 in a row and then
3 terms.
Is it yours? Or
If we have if we have a vote just like that, where there was term limited of 3 terms, our young president right here would probably not be sitting representing the housing authority because she's been on it for a few years. However, you did take a 3-year sabbatical,
I did.
and so you can come back on. How do you feel about that role?
I know it takes several years to, maybe 2, to get fully acquainted and comfortable with all the different projects and programs we have. So to do something like 2 3-year terms is probably not enough. I would support 9.
9 years?
I would still, yes, I would not be here.
You could take 3 years off.
I know. Well,
9 years, so 2, 3.
No, no,
3-year
no.
terms.
9 years total.
No, and I appreciate that, Kathy, because I know how much you've dedicated for this thing since the very beginning. And this is a term limit thing that would affect not only you, but I think Cole Hewitt and a few others that have been on for quite a
Cole,
long time.
Catherine.
Yeah.
So we have some board members.
What do you think, what do you
But
think?
again, we apply every 3 years, so if you feel that we're not doing our job, again, that is your opportunity to say, no, thank you. And there have been some board members that have not been reappointed.
Mhm.
So the current system works, but if you felt strongly about term limits, I think it's appropriate.
Let me ask you the question though. If we, what do you think the benefit would be to having a term limit in the way that we're explaining 3 years?
I would say, do you have other boards and commissions that have term limits?
I don't think we do.
Good question. We do not.
City council.
Nor does the county, nor do the county commissioners. So I know that, and I have personally been affected by Colorado state or the statutes that apply to elected officials. And it's difficult. If you want to continue to serve, let the electorate make that decision. And in this case, let you make that decision, whether someone is doing their job and is eligible to continue serving on the board. So I'm not a big fan of term limits, but I can understand why.
Thank you.
Well, I would add one thing to this, and that is, you're right, we interviewed 18 candidates. On most boards and commissions, we have to scrape around to find enough applicants.
Get Bill.
except for the golf committee, yes,
Come on,
of
Stephen,
course.
sign up for this one.
But, so I support term limits. I would be fine with 3 3-year terms, but it's up to the majority here.
So I know I'm in the minority here, but I look at it from the perspective of we want to fill out the board with the expertise that we need. And so I think we need to identify the expertise and then hire to the expertise. If those expertise has been around for a number of years, they've been around for 9 years. But if we don't have someone else applying to compete up against that set of expertise, then we need that resource. I look at corporate boards. I mean, the corporate boards don't have term limits on boards. We have full control as city council and as the county commissioners to hire and let go the people that are needed there. So I'm not a proponent of term limits because we have the switches that we can turn on and off as we need.
I mean, I don't disagree with what he says. I mean, we do have those controls. Listen, when it comes to, you've been doing these appointments and been doing them for years. I mean, it isn't a popularity contest, okay? We are looking at expertise. When you're on that committee, you're looking and reading through that, you're asking questions. And then it may be the same question that we get to ask them all, but there's times where we sit there and go, no, it's good to have Catherine Carson on there because she's the policy person and she dives into it. She's a perfect example of someone that's like, who's going to replace that policy-driven person for the housing authority? Now, if there was somebody else that came up and did an interview, we could sit there, Catherine's been on there a long time. Let's get a fresh perspective of policy. That'd be great, but we haven't had that. So that's an example of not having term limits, is because just like you're saying, we're going to end up finding ourselves getting rid of someone who we can't replace, and we're now going to have a void for a few years.
That's fine. I disagree. I would turn it around the exact opposite. And that's why we have some people on the board for a long time who should be off the board and replaced with a fresh perspective.
Convince me. What else?
I'm not going to use names.
But give me. So what are you saying? So like if you just.
I'm saying that we have plenty of competent people in this town who would like to be, it seems like, would like to be on the Housing Authority Board. And I don't think we're at a scarcity of people who have capabilities that we need on the Housing Authority Board, that we outlined 7 or 8 different capabilities we needed. I think 9 years is a long time to be on a board. And I think that, complacency, comfort zone does set in. I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
It can happen. And I would rather have term limits. But if the majority doesn't want them, I'm fine with that too.
But you've been on this, you've been appointing folks the last couple of years that you've been on here. So you've been in that committee and you kind of know what that feeling is.
And
do you not feel that there's enough control at that point of you three from city council having the control and saying, we're not going to have that golf committee person, even though they're the incumbent, because we want to have this other person, right? We have track records of not hiring or appointing incumbents.
We've also had track records where we've been asked to not replace certain people because they were too valuable to the organization.
And Kathy's still here.
I'm not talking about Kathy.
But that's still, wasn't that still the decision of the appointee committee, right? I mean, in the sense of even though it's a recommendation not to replace somebody.
I am fine if you're suggesting that in most cases, people would not be on the board for more than 9 years unless their expertise was such that it couldn't be replaced, because we would automatically want to replace them with someone new if they had expertise at a similar level.
Are we ready for?
I think that's what you're saying.
Down?
So let's vote on the
No,
3 years.
I would suggest you take public comment first, and then we can go through the
I
entire.
wanted to do that. Is there anyone in the audience or anyone online who'd like to make public comment? Come on down. We've been waiting all night for you.
You weren't. Oh.
State your name and address, please.
My name's Bruce Gwynn, live on 480 Pitkin. For those of you who don't know me, most people don't. I just got into town. My mother's dementia got bad. So had to come and take care of that. But anyways, I just had some suggestions. I've kind of been going through kind of the situation you guys have been going through here. I may have outdated information, so if this stuff's already been solved, I apologize. I'm in the process of thinking about staying and opening up a shop here in town that offers some unique services, but I don't usually do this. I'm an introvert, so I prefer being alone in the shop fixing cars, in the back. But I know how to diagnose a system that's failing, and so I just wanted to give some suggestions. I spent the last few nights analyzing numbers on the water, the housing, and infrastructure here. And if I'm being honest, the check engine light is not just on, it's blinking. Like there's a problem you guys have. We're trying to run a Ferrari economy on a 1999 Subaru radiator, cooling system. And what I think would help is like the water treatment plant. Everybody's arguing about growth and nobody's looking at the gauges. Right now, our main treatment plant is able to handle 7.5 million gallons a day at Fish Creek, something like that. But on a hot day in July, we're pulling 7 million gallons. So we're like right at the limit, and we're building more things and not really taking care of that. So we're redlining it out, every summer. If a wildfire hits Fish Creek Canyon, and that's, a win, not a if, that'll clog up those filters at that plant instantly. And the backup pump at Yampa Wells can't handle that load, the rest, to make up for that. So what I was thinking was we stop debating on the Elk River plant like it's a luxury upgrade. It's our emergency radiator. We need to build it and frame it as wildfire insurance to get the federal grants to pay for it. If we don't, one bad fire season and this town runs dry. The next thing is housing. So I believe it's like an engine starving for fuel. The fuel is the workforce. And the math is simple. To afford a standard $3,000 apartment here, you need to make $108,000 a year. But the people fixing your cars and teaching your kids and plowing the streets, they make half of that. And that's not a housing shortage. That's just a mechanical impossibility. I can't run an engine without gas. We can't wait 5 years to build new units. We need a bypass valve. So I was thinking of proposing like a master lease bridge program where the housing authority rents existing apartments at market rate, guaranteed money for landlords, no hassle. Then they sublease those units to local workers for 30% of their income. We pay the difference using the surplus cash from the short-term rental tax. It fixes the problem tonight, not in 2030. And this brings me to something that Council Member Muntean, is that how you pronounce it? I'm sorry if I...
No, yes.
Okay, so you said something about being concerned with mental health here, and some of the, suicide rates or things like that, mental health. And, I think I took that to heart. And, but I look at it like a mechanic. Parts don't usually fail because they're defective. They fail because they're under constant unmanageable pressure. When you work 3 jobs and still don't know if you have a roof over your head next month, that sets a system overload. And that's redlining the human engine in every single day. If we pass the master lease program and cut workers' rent in half, we aren't just fixing their bank account, we're lowering their blood pressure. We're telling them Steamboat has your back. So I believe that would solve that mental health, issue as well. It's a relief for people, Start by giving people a safe place to sleep that they can actually afford. Stability is the best antidepressant on the market. And finally, the frame of the vehicle. We're trying to bolt a turbocharger onto a rusted chassis. The Brown Ranch vote failed because people don't trust the suspension to hold the weight. They're terrified of the traffic. The fix, I believe, that could help is a 15-minute valley, right? Stop treating the city limits like it's a cliff. We need a high-speed transit corridor. Buses every 15 minutes, reliable as a train connecting Steamboat, Stagecoach, and Hayden. We put the housing density in the satellite towns where the land is cheaper, and we can use our tourist tax dollars to pay for transit system that brings them to work. It lowers the rent, spreads out the traffic, stops breaking the suspension of downtown Steamboat. I fix a lot of things for a living. I know the difference between a patch job and a repair. Right now, Steamboat's driving on bad brakes with an overheating radiator. Fix the water plant, subsidize the rent, and spread the load down the valley. My name's Bruce Glenn and I fix engines.
Thank you. Thank you, Bruce, for your comments.
Well said.
Bruce,
very
thank you. It's always welcome.
Yeah. Very much appreciated. Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience who'd like to make a public comment? If there's anybody online who wants to make a public comment, please raise your hand. Seeing none, we will close public comment. And so I believe, Tom, do you have every item listed?
I do.
So why don't we go through and just do a thumbs up or thumbs down? Does that work?
Yes.
That work? Okay, go ahead.
So the first would be to require an annual strategic plan that is formally presented to city council and the county. Okay. The second would be an annual financial audit that is with also a presentation to city council and the county. Adding a conflict of interest section or provision in the IGA. Cleaning up old provisions and old references. Having some language about alternates, and if regular members are not present, then an alternate member has the same power. Having a key person oversight and compensation committee.
I'm sorry, repeat that one.
This is a key person oversight and compensation committee.
Oh, yeah.
Removing any power associated with eminent domain.
Removing any power, yeah.
And term limits of three-year terms.
No, it's a tough one.
That's a tough one. Be curious. Yeah, I'm gonna go for it.
Yeah, but
I don't know who
We
else.
have-
It's 1, 2, 3.
5.
Yeah. Here's to see again how the county guides us together.
That was it.
Okay,
Board size?
you want?
board size.
Well, it was interesting how, and I appreciate what Kathy said. I mean, this was originally planned to be countywide, and having 15 on that makes sense. I know as we ramped up for the board, the Brown Ranch that went up there, but we have the ability to limit the board size, just an appointment.
Right now, is it 7 to 15 right now?
Correct.
Okay,
And there's 14,
13,
13 plus the 2,
no, including the.
including the 2.
okay.
Yeah.
Can we just take a number, thumbs up on leaving the board size between 7 and 15? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay,
Where are you? No?
no, but it passed. Okay, anything else?
May I just make for the record, because I feel like that got real weird when I was going over my,
They don't do any.
I know. That would be like the headline.
Another one?
No. I just, my review of this was not at all because I do not have faith or trust in the housing authority. A lot of you know me, you put a document like this in front of me and I am like in my happy place. This is what I do. I love updating and making it the best IGA it can be. So it is not a reflection on the housing authority at all. And I'm actually hoping with these changes will actually help bring others along as well. So I just want to make sure everyone it's really clear my intentions here. There was no bad intentions with my recommendation. So I just want to make sure.
We all know who you are.
But I just,
We know you have those hidden agendas.
No, and again, Counselor Dixon, I know that you did not have any bad intention.
There's some good books out there.
Okay, is there any other comments on the IGA from either anybody up here or either one of you two out in the audience that anybody would like to make before we close up shop tonight? I want to thank Counselor Barnes, Counselor Dixon for all your thoughts. And if there's anybody else who wrote some down, you too, thank you, Jason and Kathy, for being here tonight. And with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion from Counselor Gary, second by Counselor Barnes. All those in favor say